The Vanishing of the Roanoke Colony, 1587. The mysterious disappearance of the Roanoke colony remains one of the most enduring enigmas in American history, a story woven with elements of hope, despair, myth, and the relentless quest for answers. In the late 16th century, when the promise of the New World beckoned brave souls from Europe, an ambitious attempt was made to establish a permanent settlement on the shores of what is now North Carolina. Led by John White, the colonists arrived in 1587 with dreams of prosperity and a new beginning, only to face challenges that would ultimately seal their fate in mystery. The colony, which came to be known as the Lost Colony, was founded under the auspices of Queen Elizabeth I, who hoped that the venture would not only expand the reach of the English Empire, but also open up lucrative trade routes and opportunities for colonization in the uncharted territories of the Americas. However, from the very beginning, the settlers encountered a series of unforeseen difficulties that would test their resolve and resourcefulness. The initial period was marked by uncertainty and hardship, as the colonists struggled with unfamiliar terrain, scarce resources, and a climate that differed greatly from what they were accustomed to in England. Relationships with the local Native American tribes, whose own complex cultures and histories had long been established in the region, added layers of both opportunity and conflict. Despite attempts at diplomacy, misunderstandings and cultural differences often led to tension, leaving the colonists in a precarious position as they sought both survival and a peaceful coexistence. As the colony began to take shape with modest dwellings and rudimentary fortifications, it became apparent that the settlement was facing far more than just the natural challenges of the New World. Supply shortages, illness, and the ever-present threat of attack by hostile forces compounded the settlers' difficulties, and their situation grew increasingly dire. In the midst of these struggles, John White, the appointed governor and artist of the colony, was called back to England for urgent matters related to the political and military conflicts of the time, leaving behind a fragile community that was left to fend for itself. His departure, intended to be brief, was extended by events beyond his control, most notably the outbreak of war with Spain, which disrupted transatlantic communications and travel. White's delay in returning to Roanoke was the catalyst for the mystery that would engulf the colony. When he finally returned in 1590, he was met with an empty settlement. The only clue left behind was the enigmatic word Croton, carved into a post, a single word that sparked countless theories and debates among historians, archaeologists, and the general public alike. What could this word possibly mean? Some speculated that it was a desperate plea for help, while others argued that it signified the colonists' attempt to integrate with local Native American tribes, specifically the Croton people, whose existence was known in the region. The lack of any definitive evidence, however, left room for a multitude of interpretations. Over the centuries, the fate of the Roanoke colonists has been the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation. Some researchers have posited that the settlers succumbed to disease, famine, or conflict with the indigenous populations, while others have suggested that they may have attempted to relocate further inland, seeking refuge from the immediate dangers of the coast. Archaeological investigations in the area have uncovered tantalizing hints. A few scattered artifacts, remnants of structures, and signs of habitation, but nothing that conclusively reveals the destiny of the lost settlers. Adding to the intrigue are the conflicting accounts from early European explorers, whose often contradictory reports only served to deepen the enigma. In the absence of a definitive narrative, the story of Roanoke has become a canvas upon which various theories have been painted. Some modern scholars advocate for the idea that the colonists were absorbed into local Native American tribes, adopting their customs and ways of life as a survival strategy in the face of overwhelming adversity. This theory is supported by occasional oral histories and similarities in material culture found in the archaeological record, though critics argue that the evidence is too circumstantial to be deemed conclusive. Other hypotheses suggest that the colonists may have attempted to relocate to a different site, possibly in search of more fertile land or a safer haven away from hostile forces. In this view, the disappearance is not so much a tragedy of annihilation as it is a tale of dispersal, where the original community fragmented and integrated with other groups. Environmental factors also play a significant role in many of these theories. The climate of the late 16th century was marked by significant fluctuations, including periods of drought and change that could have rendered the already challenging living conditions even more inhospitable. The possibility that a severe drought led to crop failures and water shortages is a hypothesis that has gained traction among climatologists and historians alike, suggesting that nature itself may have been an unwitting agent in the colony's demise. The political context of the time further complicates the narrative. England's imperial ambitions were in a state of flux, and the pressures of international rivalry, especially with Spain, meant that resources and attention were often diverted away from the fledgling colonies. This lack of support may have left the Roanoke settlers more vulnerable to the myriad challenges they faced. The interplay of these factors, environmental hardship, cultural dissonance, political instability, and the sheer unpredictability of life in a new and uncharted land, created a perfect storm that led to the colony's mysterious disappearance. In the ensuing centuries, the legend of the lost colony has taken on a life of its own, inspiring countless works of literature, art, and popular culture. It has become a symbol of the perils of exploration and the fragility of human endeavors in the face of overwhelming odds. The mystery has also served as a potent reminder of the limits of historical knowledge, challenging modern researchers to piece together a coherent narrative from the fragmented remnants of a bygone era. Despite numerous expeditions, extensive archaeological digs, and even modern scientific techniques such as ground-penetrating radar and isotope analysis, the fate of the Roanoke colonists remains unresolved. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, yet the complete picture continues to elude scholars. The enduring allure of the mystery lies in its resistance to easy explanation, a historical riddle that refuses to yield its secrets. The story of Roanoke is not merely a tale of loss and abandonment. It is also a narrative of hope and resilience. The colonists, in their brief and ill-fated attempt to build a new life in a strange and unforgiving land, embody the spirit of human curiosity and the unyielding desire to explore the unknown. Their disappearance, while tragic, is a testament to the inherent risks of venturing into uncharted territories and the unpredictable nature of fate. Over time, the legend has been reinterpreted in various ways, with each generation finding new meaning in the mystery. For some, it represents the ultimate failure of a colonial enterprise, a stark reminder of the limitations of human ambition in the face of nature's might. For others, it is a story of transformation and assimilation, a narrative that speaks to the complex interactions between European settlers and the indigenous peoples of North America. In the modern era, the Roanoke mystery has taken on additional layers of significance, resonating with contemporary themes of displacement, cultural loss, and the search for identity. It has become a subject of intense academic debate and a focal point for community-based historical research, with local historians and enthusiasts striving to uncover any clue that might finally explain what happened to those who once called Roanoke home. The island on which the colony was established, now shrouded in layers of myth and history, continues to be a site of fascination and pilgrimage. Visitors and researchers alike come in search of answers, drawn by the possibility of unearthing the long-buried secrets of a vanished people. Every artifact, every inscription, and every fragment of evidence is scrutinized in the hope that it might offer a glimpse into the lives of those who once inhabited the colony. Yet, even as modern science advances and new methods of analysis are developed, the mystery endures, a poignant reminder that some chapters of history are meant to remain enigmatic, their true meanings obscured by the relentless passage of time. The fascination with the lost colony extends beyond the confines of academic inquiry, permeating popular culture and the collective imagination of the public. From novels and films to documentaries and museum exhibits, the story of Roanoke has been retold in myriad forms, each interpretation adding its own nuances to the narrative. This cultural permeation underscores the deep human need to seek understanding and meaning in the face of inexplicable events. It is a story that invites us to ponder the limits of our knowledge and the enduring power of mystery to captivate and inspire. As we reflect on the fate of the Roanoke colonists, we are reminded of the fragility of human endeavors and the unpredictable forces that shape our destiny. The lost colony stands as a monument to both the triumphs and tragedies of exploration, a historical puzzle that continues to challenge our perceptions of the past. In the final analysis, the mystery of Roanoke is not solely about the disappearance. In the final analysis, the mystery of Roanoke is not solely about the disappearance of a group of settlers. It is about the human spirit itself, the relentless drive to explore, to understand, and to leave an indelible mark on the world, even when the outcome is shrouded in uncertainty. The legacy of Roanoke endures because it represents the intersection of ambition, adversity, and the inexplicable, a convergence of factors that ultimately defies simple explanation. As historians and researchers continue to delve into the remnants of this lost world, the story of Roanoke remains a powerful symbol of the unknown, a testament to the enduring allure of mysteries that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding. In the annals of history, the disappearance of the Roanoke colony occupies a unique and enigmatic space, one where the lines between fact and folklore blur, and where the relentless pursuit of truth is met with the enduring silence of the past. Though the colony may have vanished from the physical landscape, its story lives on, inviting each new generation to explore its depths and to grapple with the questions that remain unanswered. Ultimately, the tale of the lost colony serves as a mirror reflecting the complexities of human existence, a reminder that even in our greatest achievements, there lies the ever-present possibility of mystery, loss, and the inexorable passage of time that sweeps all secrets into the shadows of history. The Mary Celeste Ghost Ship. The legend of the Mary Celeste Ghost Ship has haunted maritime history for over a century, a mysterious narrative of a vessel found adrift, completely abandoned yet still seaworthy, on a cold and eerie morning that defied all logic and reason. The ship, originally built as the Brigantine de Grazia in 1861, underwent several name changes and modifications throughout her life, eventually being rechristened as the Mary Celeste in 1869, and she quickly became a symbol of maritime enigma due to the baffling circumstances that surrounded her fate. In November 1872, while under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs, the Mary Celeste set sail from New York City bound for Genoa, carrying a cargo of denatured alcohol along with a complement of a seasoned crew and a few passengers, all of whom seemed intent on a routine voyage across the Atlantic. However, what unfolded was anything but ordinary. When the vessel was discovered by the crew of the De Grazia on December 4, 1872, floating aimlessly in the middle of the ocean near the Azores, the scene was both perplexing and chilling. The ship was found intact and operational, her cargo undisturbed, and her personal belongings in order, yet there was not a soul aboard, as if the entire crew and all passengers had vanished into thin air. The mystery was compounded by the fact that the lifeboat was missing and there were signs that a life raft had been launched in haste, leaving behind personal effects and navigational instruments that hinted at an abrupt departure. Despite extensive investigations, no conclusive evidence was ever found to explain the disappearance, and theories have since abounded. Some scholars suggest that a sudden outbreak of panic or a catastrophic event such as a fire or explosion in the cargo hold might have forced the crew to abandon ship immediately. Yet the absence of any significant damage or residual danger from the volatile cargo argues against this hypothesis. Others have posited that the ship might have encountered a severe waterspout or a sudden storm that led to the crew's hurried escape, but the weather conditions recorded in contemporary reports did not support the occurrence of such violent phenomena at that time and location. As speculation grew, theories took on more elaborate forms, with some researchers suggesting that the crew may have been victims of piracy or mutiny, while others entertained the possibility of supernatural intervention, a notion that has found fertile ground in the annals of ghost ship legends worldwide. Indeed, the eerie silence of the Mary Celeste has inspired countless works of fiction and has been cited as a prime example of maritime mysteries that blur the lines between rational explanation and the inexplicable. Over the years, investigators have combed through the ship's logs, personal diaries of the crew, and the scant physical evidence left on board, yet every avenue of inquiry only deepened the puzzle. The ship's condition upon discovery was nearly pristine, with the sails set and the rigging intact, the personal effects of the crew still in place, and the cargo largely undisturbed, suggesting that whatever event transpired had been both sudden and deliberate in its execution. Some modern maritime historians have proposed that the phenomenon of marine disembarkation, a rarely observed but plausible occurrence whereby a crew might evacuate a vessel in the midst of an inexplicable emergency, could account for the disappearance. However, this theory too is fraught with unanswered questions, particularly the absence of any trace of distress signals or remnants of the crew that might indicate an organized evacuation under duress. Other experts have examined the possibility that the crew might have fallen victim to a rare form of mass hysteria or psychological contagion, wherein a pervasive sense of foreboding or fear compelled them to abandon the ship en masse, leaving behind a vessel that was perfectly seaworthy. Yet, such an explanation struggles to account for the complete absence of any personal effects indicating a hurried departure, such as valuables or items that one would normally take in an emergency. As the investigation unfolded, attention also turned to the ship's cargo of denatured alcohol, a substance known for its volatile properties if mishandled or exposed to extreme conditions. Some theorize that a minor leak or vapor buildup might have created a situation of imminent danger, prompting a preemptive evacuation by the crew before an explosion could occur. But detailed examinations of the ship's hold revealed no evidence of significant leakage or damage that would have warranted such drastic measures. The physical evidence that remained on board, ranging from navigational charts and logs to personal belongings, painted a picture of a crew that had seemingly abandoned ship in an orderly fashion. Yet the lack of any lifeboats or rescue signals left investigators perplexed and led to further speculation about the sequence of events on that fateful night. Among the myriad theories put forth, one of the most persistent and debated is the idea that the crew of the Mary Celeste may have deliberately left the ship under the belief that it was doomed to a catastrophic fate, possibly due to superstitious omens or misinterpreted natural phenomena. This theory is bolstered by accounts from contemporary sailors who recounted similar incidents in which an overwhelming sense of dread or forewarning led to inexplicable mass evacuations. Though such narratives are often steeped in myth and are difficult to verify with hard evidence. Over time, the enigma of the Mary Celeste has grown into a cultural phenomenon, with the ship's ghostly legacy inspiring novels, films, and even songs that seek to capture the imagination of audiences with tales of mystery and the supernatural. The very term ghost ship has entered popular lexicon, evoking images of vessels drifting silently through fog-shrouded waters, haunted by the echoes of lives abruptly interrupted. The enduring fascination with the Mary Celeste lies not only in the unresolved questions about her fate, but also in the broader human impulse to seek meaning in the face of inexplicable loss and uncertainty, a theme that resonates deeply in an era where the boundaries between science and the unknown continue to blur. In the decades following her discovery, numerous expeditions and scholarly inquiries have attempted to piece together the puzzle, each drawing on a combination of historical documents, eyewitness accounts, and modern forensic techniques in an effort to reconstruct the final hours of the ill-fated voyage. Yet, Despite these concerted efforts, the true story of the Mary Celeste remains shrouded in ambiguity, a maritime mystery that defies definitive explanation and continues to challenge both experts and enthusiasts alike. The case of the Mary Celeste has also prompted a re-examination of maritime safety protocols and the inherent vulnerabilities of seafaring life in the 19th century, as investigators sought to understand how a vessel of her caliber could be abandoned without any clear signs of distress or sabotage. The incident has since served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the unpredictable and often perilous nature of life at sea, where even the most well-maintained ships and experienced crews are not immune to the caprices of fate. As theories and investigations evolved, some researchers argued that the ghost ship phenomenon associated with the Mary Celeste could be linked to environmental factors such as rogue waves or sudden shifts in ocean currents, events that might have disoriented the crew or triggered a premature evacuation in the absence of any visible danger. However, these explanations, while plausible in theory, remain speculative in light of the limited data available from that period, and they underscore the broader challenge of reconciling historical records with modern scientific understanding. The mystery is further compounded by the fact that the Mary Celeste was found relatively close to other shipping lanes, areas where one would expect to find signs of rescue or communication from a vessel in distress. Yet no such evidence was ever uncovered, leaving open the possibility that the crew's disappearance was not the result of a natural disaster or accident, but rather a deliberate, if misguided, act of self-preservation. Throughout the years, the haunting image of the Mary Celeste has come to symbolize the eternal struggle between human ingenuity and the overwhelming forces of nature, a narrative that continues to inspire both wonder and trepidation among those who study the annals of seafaring lore. The ship's story is a poignant testament to the unpredictable and often unfathomable events that can occur in the vast expanse of the ocean, where the thin veneer of civilization and order can be suddenly disrupted by the inexplicable and the unknown. In modern times, advancements in technology and maritime research have allowed for a more nuanced exploration of the conditions that might have led to the ship's abandonment, including detailed analyses of oceanographic data, climate patterns, and the chemical properties of denatured alcohol. These scientific endeavors have provided valuable insights into the potential hazards faced by 19th century mariners, yet they have not succeeded in unraveling the core mystery of why the Mary Celeste was left to drift, a ghost ship without a crew, on that fateful December day. Despite the passage of time and the proliferation of theories, the Mary Celeste remains a subject of intense debate and fascination, a symbol of the enduring allure of maritime mysteries that refuse to be neatly explained by rational inquiry alone. The ship's ghostly legacy has transcended the realm of academic study to become an integral part of popular culture, inspiring countless creative works that explore themes of isolation, loss, and the haunting beauty of the unexplained. In literature, film, and art, the Mary Celeste is often portrayed as a spectral reminder of the fragility of human existence in the face of the boundless and indifferent forces of nature. Moreover, the ongoing mystery of the Mary Celeste has led to a broader cultural reflection on the nature of disappearance and the human need to find meaning in events that defy explanation. Her story challenges our understanding of history, memory, and the way in which we construct narratives about the past, inviting us to ponder the limits of our knowledge and the possibility that some mysteries may remain forever unsolved. As investigators continue to revisit the case with fresh perspectives and modern analytical tools, the Mary Celeste serves as a compelling reminder of the vast unknowns that still exist in our world, even in an age of unprecedented technological advancement and scientific discovery. Each new theory, no matter how innovative or well-supported, seems only to add another layer of complexity to the enigma, suggesting that the true nature of what transpired on that cold Atlantic morning may be beyond the grasp of conventional wisdom. The ghost ship, with her silent decks and empty quarters, stands as an enduring monument to the mysteries of the deep, a spectral figure that haunts not only the pages of maritime history, but also the collective imagination of those who dare to venture into the realm of the unexplained. In contemplating the legacy of the Mary Celeste, one cannot help but be struck by the profound symbolism of a vessel that, despite the relentless passage of time, continues to evoke both wonder and melancholy, a poignant reminder that some secrets of the past are destined to remain forever veiled in shadow, their truths locked away beneath layers of myth, conjecture, and the inexorable tide of time. Thus, the Mary Celeste ghost ship endures as one of history's most captivating maritime mysteries, a saga of sudden abandonment and unexplained silence that invites each successive generation to look out upon the vast ocean and wonder at the countless stories that lie hidden beneath its surface, waiting to be told yet forever shrouded in the mists of uncertainty and the eternal call of the unknown. The Green Children of Woolpit. The legend of the Green Children of Woolpit is one of the most enigmatic and enduring tales to emerge from medieval England, a story that has captivated the imaginations of historians, folklorists, and curious minds for centuries. It all began in the small village of Woolpit in Suffolk during the 12th century when, according to chronicled accounts, two mysterious children were discovered near the wolf pits that gave the village its name. These children, described as having a peculiar green tint to their skin, appeared to be unlike any of the local inhabitants, and their sudden, unexplained arrival set in motion a cascade of theories, speculations, and legends that have persisted through the ages. The children, one of whom was a boy and the other a girl, were found speaking an unknown language and exhibiting behaviors that confounded their rescuers, for they seemed to possess an otherworldly quality that made it impossible for the villagers to immediately ascertain whether they were human or some kind of supernatural beings from another realm. Over time, the story evolved into a narrative that wove together elements of wonder, fear, and hope as people tried to reconcile the inexplicable with the known, and the green hue of the children's skin became a symbol of mystery, a living testament to a phenomenon that defied conventional understanding. Many who heard the tale believed that the green coloration might be explained by a condition known as chlorosis or green sickness, which was documented in medieval medical texts as affecting adolescents, particularly those suffering from malnutrition. However, such an explanation seemed too mundane to account for the vibrant, almost luminescent quality of the children's appearance as described in the accounts passed down through generations. Alternative theories abounded, with some suggesting that the children were the offspring of a lost or hidden people, perhaps a subterranean race that had dwelled beneath the earth for ages and whose very existence challenged the boundaries of contemporary human experience, while others speculated that they might have come from a parallel world or a realm of fairies, a notion that found fertile ground in the rich soil of medieval folklore and the widespread belief in supernatural realms beyond. The everyday. As the tale was retold from one generation to the next, details began to shift and transform, and by the time the story had reached the modern era, it had become a complex tapestry interwoven with elements of historical fact, myth, and allegory. Some accounts maintain that the children eventually learned to speak English and were gradually integrated into the local community, while others suggested that they eventually vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared, leaving behind only questions and the lingering impression of an impossible encounter. Scholars and researchers, driven by an insatiable curiosity to unravel the truth behind the legend, have pored over medieval manuscripts, parish records, and local folklore, attempting to piece together a coherent narrative from the scattered fragments of evidence that survive. Yet, despite their efforts, the true origins of the Green Children remain shrouded in ambiguity, a mystery that continues to inspire both scientific inquiry and imaginative speculation. Some modern investigators have entertained the possibility that the green hue of the children might be attributed to an unusual dietary habit in a remote, isolated community, perhaps one in which the consumption of certain plants or minerals could have altered their pigmentation. But such hypotheses remain highly speculative and are undermined by the lack of corroborative evidence in the historical record. Other researchers have considered the role of environmental factors, suggesting that the children might have been exposed to natural elements, such as water or soil containing high concentrations of copper or other minerals, that could have temporarily imparted a greenish tint to their skin. However, this explanation, too, raises more questions than it answers, particularly regarding the longevity of such an effect and why it would be confined to just these two individuals. In addition to the physical explanations, the story of the Green Children has also been interpreted as a metaphor for the experience of cultural and social isolation, reflecting the fears and uncertainties of a society confronted with the unfamiliar. The children's strange appearance and behavior could be seen as symbolic of the ways in which outsiders or immigrants were often perceived in a medieval context, their differences both fascinating and threatening to the established order. This interpretation is bolstered by the fact that Woolpit, like many small villages of the time, was a microcosm of a tightly knit community where deviations from the norm were met with suspicion and where legends served as a means of explaining and coping with the inexplicable. The enduring appeal of the Green Children legend lies in its ambiguity, a narrative that simultaneously challenges and reinforces the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural, the known and the unknown. And in this way, it serves as a mirror reflecting the perennial human quest to find order and meaning in a world that is often unpredictable and inscrutable. Throughout the centuries, the story has been adapted and reinterpreted in various cultural forms, appearing in literary works, paintings, and even modern films, each new rendition adding another layer to the mystery, while also highlighting the timeless human fascination with anomalies that defy simple explanation. The very idea that two children, marked by an unusual coloration, could emerge from obscurity and leave an indelible impression on an entire community speaks to a universal theme: the search for identity and belonging in a world that is both wondrous and full of hidden perils. In modern times, the legend of the Green Children of Woolpit has been re-examined in light of new scientific and historical methodologies, with interdisciplinary studies drawing on fields as diverse as genetics, anthropology, and environmental science in an effort to determine whether there might be a kernel of truth underlying the fantastical elements of the story. Despite these efforts, the evidence remains elusive, and the Green Children continue to inhabit a liminal space between myth and reality, their existence a tantalizing enigma that resists definitive explanation. Some historians have suggested that the tale may have been a conflation of two separate events: a case of mistaken identity involving children of a local immigrant family whose unusual appearance was misinterpreted by a superstitious populace, or perhaps the result of a rare medical condition that was not well understood at the time, and that over the years, the narrative was gradually embellished and mythologized until it took on a life of its own. Others propose that the story might have been deliberately fabricated or exaggerated by medieval chroniclers in order to lend an air of wonder and mystery to the local history of Woolpit, a strategy that would have helped to establish the village as a place of intrigue and supernatural significance in an era when such tales were highly prized. Whatever the truth may be, the legend of the Green Children endures as a powerful reminder of the ways in which human beings have always sought to explain the inexplicable through the lens of myth and metaphor, turning anomalies into narratives and transforming fleeting moments of mystery into enduring cultural symbols. The story's persistent resonance in the modern imagination is a testament to the deep-seated human desire to confront the unknown, to explore the boundaries of our understanding, and to acknowledge that even in a world increasingly dominated by scientific rationality, there remains a place for wonder, for the unexpected, and for the possibility that not all questions can or should be neatly resolved. As we continue to uncover new information about the past and refine our understanding of historical events, the Green Children of Woolpit stand as a symbol of the enduring power of mystery, an invitation to look beyond the surface of the everyday and to consider the infinite possibilities that lie hidden within the folds of history and folklore. Their story challenges us to embrace ambiguity, to celebrate the beauty of unanswered questions, and to recognize that the magic of a well-told legend is not diminished by its lack of resolution, but is, In fact, enhanced by the very mysteries it leaves behind. In this light, the Green Children are not merely a historical curiosity but a living emblem of the human spirit. A spirit that is unafraid to venture into uncharted territories, whether they be physical, intellectual, or emotional, and that finds strength and inspiration in the act of questioning and the pursuit of the unknown. As the centuries have passed, the legacy of these enigmatic figures has grown, drawing the attention of scholars, artists, and dreamers alike, all of whom have contributed to the rich tapestry of interpretations that now surround the tale. Each retelling, each new theory, and each artistic representation adds another brushstroke to a picture that is as complex as it is compelling, a picture that invites us to ponder the nature of reality itself and to consider the ways in which our perceptions of the world are shaped by the stories we tell. In a sense, the mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit endures not despite its ambiguity but because of it, serving as a perennial source of fascination that reminds us that some of the most profound truths about the human experience are best expressed not through definitive answers but through the evocative power of mystery and the endless capacity of the imagination to transform the mundane into the marvelous. Even as modern science advances and our capacity to analyze the minutiae of the natural world grows ever more sophisticated, there remains an ineffable quality to the story of these children. A quality that speaks to the heart of what it means to be human. A deep-seated need to seek out the extraordinary in the midst of the ordinary, to find meaning in the midst of chaos, and to celebrate the mysteries that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding. In the final analysis, the Green Children of Woolpit represent much more than a curious footnote in the annals of medieval history. They embody the timeless interplay between myth and reality, the convergence of fact and fantasy, and the enduring belief that the world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered by those who are brave enough to look beyond the surface and embrace the unknown. Their story, though shrouded in uncertainty and veiled by the mists of time, continues to inspire and challenge us, inviting us to question our assumptions, to re-examine the boundaries of possibility, and to celebrate the beauty of a mystery that, like the verdant hue of their skin, remains as vibrant and compelling today as it was in the days of old, a living testament to the power of legend to transcend the confines of history and speak to the eternal human yearning for wonder, connection, and the unquenchable light of curiosity that burns at the very core of our being. The Lost Persian Army of Cambyses II. The mystery of the lost Persian army of Cambyses II stands as one of the most enduring enigmas in ancient military history, a tale that has captured the imagination of historians, scholars, and enthusiasts for centuries, inviting endless debate and speculation regarding the fate of an entire force of warriors whose disappearance appears to have been swallowed by the shifting sands of time and the relentless forces of nature. Cambyses II, the ambitious and formidable son of Cyrus the Great, inherited an empire of unparalleled extent and a legacy of military innovation and bold conquests. And it was under his command that the Persian armies embarked on a daring campaign into the heart of Egypt, a venture that would ultimately be marred by an inexplicable calamity that erased the traces of tens of thousands of soldiers from the historical record. As the Persian forces advanced through the vast and unforgiving deserts that separated the familiar lands of Persia from the fertile banks of the Nile, they encountered not only the searing heat and arid wastelands of a merciless environment but also phenomena that defied human explanation. According to fragmented historical accounts and the whisperings of ancient chroniclers, a sudden and violent desert storm, seemingly conjured by the capricious will of the gods, swept over the army with a fury so intense that it disoriented and scattered the disciplined ranks, leaving behind nothing but a swirling vortex of sand and chaos. In that fateful moment, the organized might of the Persian military, honed by years of training and battle, was reduced to disarray, as the sand and wind obliterated not only the physical traces of the soldiers' presence but also any semblance of the order and unity that had defined their campaign. The storm raged with an almost supernatural intensity, its roaring winds and blinding dust enveloping the entire force, so that in the aftermath, the once formidable army had seemingly vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind a void that has confounded historians ever since. Some ancient sources suggest that the scale of the disaster was staggering, with estimates claiming that as many as 50,000 soldiers were lost in the merciless fury of the desert, their bodies and belongings swallowed by the relentless sands, while other accounts propose that the loss was more gradual. A slow attrition brought on by a combination of environmental hardship, logistical failures, and the insidious effects of the storm that left survivors scattered and unable to regroup. What is known with certainty, however, is that the disappearance of this mighty force had far-reaching implications for the Persian Empire, shaking the very foundations of its military might and leaving a legacy of unanswered questions and speculative theories. Some scholars argue that the storm was a natural phenomenon of extraordinary magnitude, a freak occurrence in the annals of meteorological history that, while not entirely unprecedented, was magnified by the harshness of the desert and the vulnerability of an army far from its supply lines. Others contend that the loss of the army may have been exacerbated by a series of miscalculations on the part of the Persian commanders, who, in their drive to conquer new territories, may have underestimated the challenges posed by the unforgiving environment. The interplay between human ambition and the indifferent cruelty of nature is a theme that recurs throughout history, and the tragedy of the lost Persian army is perhaps one of the most striking examples of how even the mightiest of forces can be humbled by the elements. Over the centuries, numerous theories have emerged to explain the disappearance of the army, ranging from the plausible to the fantastic. Some historians have proposed that the storm was accompanied by a sudden outbreak of disease or a catastrophic failure in the supply chain, which, combined with the environmental stressors, led to a rapid decline in morale and cohesion among the ranks. Others have suggested that the very nature of the desert, its ever-shifting dunes, its hidden sinkholes, and its capacity to conceal ancient secrets, played a more active role in the disaster, as if the land itself conspired to reclaim the soldiers who had dared to traverse it. Adding to the enigma are the sparse and often contradictory accounts recorded by contemporary observers, many of whom were as baffled by the event as later generations would be. Some chroniclers speak of an eerie silence that followed the storm, a silence so profound that it seemed to echo the final, unspoken farewell of a once mighty army, while others note the inexplicable absence of any remains or relics that might offer clues to the soldier's fate. In the absence of definitive evidence, the story of the lost Persian army of Cambyses II has become a canvas upon which myth and history are interwoven, each new retelling adding layers of interpretation and symbolic meaning to an event that defies simple explanation. The desert, in its vast and timeless expanse, has long been a repository for secrets and a stage for the play of fate and fortune, and the disappearance of Cambyses II's forces serves as a potent reminder of the fragile boundary between human endeavor and the overwhelming power of nature. For modern historians and archaeologists, the challenge lies in disentangling the kernels of truth from the accretions of legend that have accumulated over millennia. Excavations in regions once traversed by the Persian armies have occasionally uncovered fragments of weaponry, pottery, and other artifacts that hint at the presence of a large military force. Yet the evidence is far too scant and scattered to reconstruct a definitive account of what transpired during that fateful encounter with the desert storm. Advances in technology, such as satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar, have offered new avenues for exploring the landscape of the ancient battlefield. Yet the shifting sands and the inexorable march of time have conspired to conceal the true extent of the disaster beneath layers of sediment and myth. Even as new techniques promise to shed light on the forgotten chapters of history, the mystery endures, a testament to the enduring allure of unanswered questions and the human desire to seek meaning in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. The loss of the Persian army is not merely a military footnote, but a profound episode that resonates with the timeless themes of hubris, fate, and the inevitable reckoning that awaits those who dare to challenge the natural order. Cambyses II, who had set out with the conviction that his empire could conquer and control even the most inhospitable of lands, was forced to confront the harsh reality that nature remains an unconquerable force, indifferent to the ambitions of men and empires alike. The psychological impact of this catastrophe on the Persian leadership was profound, leading to a reevaluation of military strategy and an enduring cautionary note about the limits of human control. In the centuries that followed, the tale of the lost army has been invoked as a metaphor for the ephemeral nature of power and the unpredictable caprices of fate, a reminder that even the most carefully orchestrated plans can be undone in an instant by forces beyond mortal comprehension. Poets and philosophers, inspired by the tragic irony of an empire undone by the very elements it sought to master, have woven the story of the lost Persian army into the fabric of cultural memory, transforming it into a symbol of the eternal struggle between order and chaos. This narrative, with its rich interplay of historical fact and imaginative embellishment, invites us to reflect on the profound mysteries that lie at the intersection of human ambition and the natural world. It challenges us to consider the ways in which history is shaped not only by the deeds of men but also by the inexorable rhythms of nature, which, in their quiet majesty, possess the power to reshape the destinies of entire civilizations. The legacy of the lost army endures as a powerful allegory of human vulnerability in the face of the unknown, a story that compels us to acknowledge the limitations of our knowledge and the transient nature of even the greatest human achievements. In the shimmering heat of the desert, where every grain of sand bears witness to the passage of countless years, the memory of those who marched under the banner of Cambyses II is etched into the landscape, a silent testament to a moment when the fury of nature swept away the dreams of an empire and left behind a void that continues to inspire wonder and sorrow in equal measure. As modern scholars continue their quest to unravel the threads of this ancient mystery, they are met with the daunting realization that some chapters of history may forever remain shrouded in ambiguity, their secrets locked away beneath layers of myth, time, and the relentless forces of the natural world. Each new discovery, each glimmer of evidence unearthed from the depths of the desert, serves as both a beacon of hope and a reminder of the vast unknown that still lies beyond the reach of contemporary inquiry. The story of the lost Persian army of Cambyses II, in all its tragic grandeur and inscrutable mystery, endures as a challenge to our intellect and a testament to the eternal power of nature. A narrative that, even after centuries of speculation, continues to captivate our collective imagination and beckon us to explore the shadowy realms where history and myth converge into a single, unyielding enigma. In contemplating the fate of those brave soldiers who marched into the maw of the desert only to vanish without a trace, we are reminded that the pursuit of knowledge is often as fraught with uncertainty as it is with revelation, and that the most profound mysteries of our past may ultimately serve as enduring symbols of the fragility and resilience of the human spirit in the face of forces that are as ancient as time itself. With every shifting dune and every echo of a long-forgotten battle cry carried by the desert wind, the legacy of the lost Persian army whispers a timeless story of ambition, despair, and the inexorable passage of time. A story that challenges us to confront the limits of our understanding and to embrace the profound mystery that lies at the heart of existence, where the triumphs and tragedies of civilizations are but fleeting moments in the eternal dance of nature. And so, as the sun sets over the endless expanse of the desert and the shadows lengthen across the barren sands, the enigma of the lost army remains an open chapter in the grand narrative of history, a testament to the unpredictable power of the natural world and a somber reminder that even the mightiest of empires can be undone in the blink of an eye by the inexorable forces that govern the universe. In this light, the disappearance of the Persian army under Cambyses II is not simply a matter of historical record, but a profound allegory for the limits of human ambition and the eternal struggle against the inscrutable, often overwhelming forces of nature that shape our destiny, leaving us with a legacy of mystery, reflection, and the enduring question of what truly lies beyond the horizon of our understanding. The disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans has intrigued scholars, archaeologists, and curious minds for generations, presenting a multifaceted puzzle of environmental change, social upheaval, and cultural transformation that defies simple explanation while inviting endless theories and interpretations from those seeking to understand one of North America's most enigmatic historical phenomena, emerging over a span of centuries in the arid landscapes of the American Southwest. The ancestral Puebloans built sophisticated communities, intricate dwellings carved into cliff faces, and an advanced agricultural system that allowed them to thrive in an environment that many considered inhospitable. Yet despite the ingenuity and resilience they displayed in adapting to their surroundings, a gradual and perplexing decline culminated in the abandonment of their once flourishing settlements, leaving behind silent ruins and scattered artifacts that whisper secrets of a past era whose final chapter remains shrouded in uncertainty and conjecture. Many researchers have posited that climatic changes played a pivotal role in the fate of these ancient peoples, suggesting that prolonged droughts, unpredictable monsoon patterns, and severe fluctuations in temperature disrupted their agricultural cycles and strained their water resources to a breaking point, thereby undermining the very foundation of their society and forcing them to abandon their homes in search of more hospitable lands, while others point to the possibility of social and political factors such as internal conflict, resource competition, and even warfare as catalysts for fragmentation and eventual dispersal of the population, creating a scenario where once unified communities became divided and vulnerable to external pressures. As modern archaeological investigations have advanced, new techniques such as dendrochronology, isotope analysis, and remote sensing have provided glimpses into the environmental conditions of the era, revealing evidence of prolonged drought periods that coincide with the timeline of the population decline. Yet even as these scientific methods bolster the hypothesis of climatic stress, they do not fully account for the abruptness and scale of the societal collapse observed in the archaeological record, leaving room for alternative or complementary explanations that highlight the complex interplay of human agency and natural forces. Indeed, the notion that the ancestral Puebloans simply succumbed to a natural disaster or environmental catastrophe seems overly simplistic when one considers the intricate social networks, trade routes, and cultural practices that define their way of life, suggesting instead that a combination of gradual climate deterioration, overexploitation of local resources, and shifts in social organization may have gradually eroded the stability of their communities until a tipping point was reached, triggering a mass migration or even a reorganization of society that saw the dispersal of people into neighboring regions, where they integrated with other indigenous groups and contributed to the rich tapestry of cultural evolution in the Southwest. As the ruins of great sites such as Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and other cliff dwellings stand as testament to a once thriving civilization, they also evoke questions about the nature of progress and the sustainability of human endeavors in the face of environmental uncertainty, prompting modern observers to reflect on how advanced planning, technological innovation, and social cohesion can sometimes be insufficient to stave off the relentless forces of nature and time. Numerous legends and oral traditions among contemporary Native American communities hint at a time when the great people of the past were forced to leave behind their ancestral lands. And while these stories are often interwoven with elements of myth and symbolism, they provide a human context to the stark archaeological record, suggesting that the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans was not merely a case of vanishing into thin air, but rather a protracted process marked by adaptation, resilience, and ultimately transformation, as people moved to new areas, altered their cultural practices, and laid the foundations for the diverse indigenous societies that exist in the region today. Moreover, the archaeological record itself is replete with signs of both continuity and change, with artifacts, pottery styles, and construction techniques that evolve over time, offering clues about the gradual process of cultural transition that may have accompanied the physical relocation of populations. And while the precise reasons for the abandonment of the monumental sites remain elusive, it is clear that the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans represents a complex phenomenon that cannot be reduced to a single cause but must be understood as the result of multiple interacting factors that include environmental degradation, demographic pressures, and the inherent volatility of social structures. As scholars continue to debate whether the migration was a voluntary retreat from increasingly harsh living conditions or a forced dispersal precipitated by internal strife and external invasions, it is important to consider the broader context of human adaptation in arid regions, where populations have historically faced similar challenges and have often responded with remarkable ingenuity by developing water conservation techniques, crop diversification strategies, and flexible settlement patterns. Yet even these adaptive measures may have been overwhelmed by the cumulative impact of rapid environmental change and escalating resource competition. The story of the ancestral Puebloans is further complicated by the fact that their disappearance did not occur uniformly across the region, but appears to have varied from one locality to another, with some sites being abandoned abruptly, while others show evidence of gradual decline and intermittent reoccupation, a pattern that suggests that local conditions, including access to water, soil fertility, and social organization, played a critical role in determining the fate of individual communities. This patchwork of outcomes challenges researchers to adopt a nuanced approach that integrates climate data, archaeological evidence, and ethno-historical records to reconstruct a coherent narrative of collapse and transformation, one that acknowledges both the agency of the people involved and the unpredictable impact of environmental forces. In recent years, interdisciplinary studies have sought to bridge the gap between the natural sciences and the humanities by employing computer simulations, geographic information systems, and paleoclimatic reconstructions to model the potential scenarios that could have led to the decline of the ancestral Puebloans. And while these models have provided valuable insights into the possible timing and severity of drought events and resource scarcity, they also underscore the inherent uncertainty in projecting human behavior onto the past, where decisions were made in a context far removed from modern technological conveniences and scientific understanding. The disappearance of these ancient peoples, therefore, stands as a poignant reminder of the fragility of human civilizations and the ways in which environmental and social challenges can conspire to alter the course of history, a lesson that resonates in today's discussions about climate change, sustainability, and the future of modern societies facing their own unprecedented environmental crises. As researchers pore over the layers of sediment and the remnants of adobe structures, each fragment of pottery, every charred beam of wood, and the subtle shifts in soil composition contribute to a mosaic of evidence that tells a story of both triumph and tragedy, of a civilization that reached great heights of cultural achievement and then receded into the mists of time, leaving behind questions that continue to stimulate debate and inspire wonder among those who seek to understand the ephemeral nature of human achievement. Some scholars argue that the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans was an inevitable consequence of their geographic setting, bound by the limits of a fragile ecosystem that could not sustain a burgeoning population indefinitely, while others contend that the collapse was precipitated by a series of cascading failures, environmental, economic, and social, that collectively undermined the foundations of their society and forced a radical rethinking of community organization and survival strategies. In either case, the legacy of the ancestral Puebloans is one of both remarkable innovation and sobering caution, a dual narrative that encapsulates the human drive to build, to create, and to adapt, even in the face of overwhelming odds, and yet also serves as a testament to the vulnerability of even the most advanced cultures when confronted with the inexorable forces of nature and the unpredictable dynamics of social change. The ruins of ancient dwellings, the intricate kivas carved into sandstone cliffs, and the art and pottery that have been painstakingly unearthed from the desert floor all serve as silent witnesses to a vibrant society whose final days were marked by uncertainty and upheaval, And while modern technology allows us to glimpse into this bygone world with unprecedented clarity, it also reveals the profound gaps in our understanding, gaps that may never be fully bridged despite the best efforts of contemporary science and archaeology. Indeed, the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans remains one of the most compelling mysteries of North American prehistory, a case study in the limits of human control over nature and the complex interplay between environmental constraints and cultural ingenuity. And as researchers continue to excavate, analyze, and interpret the evidence, they are reminded that every artifact, every ruin, and every natural marker is a clue to a story that is as much about adaptation and resilience as it is about decline and disappearance. In the end, the legacy of the ancestral Puebloans is not defined solely by their mysterious departure from the landscapes they once inhabited, but also by the enduring influence they have exerted on the cultural and historical consciousness of the region, influencing the traditions, art, and social structures of descendant communities and serving as a timeless reminder that the rise and fall of civilizations is a process marked by both innovation and inevitable decay, a cycle that continues to shape the human experience from ancient times to the present. As we reflect on the disappearance of this ancient civilization, we are invited to consider the broader implications of their story for our own times, recognizing that the challenges they faced, climatic extremes, resource scarcity, social fragmentation, are not unique to the past, but echo in the contemporary world, urging us to learn from their experience and to appreciate the delicate balance between human ambition and the forces of nature. A balance that, when disrupted, can lead to outcomes as profound and transformative as the enigmatic exodus of the ancestral Puebloans from their ancestral homelands, leaving behind a legacy of mystery, resilience, and an enduring quest for survival that continues to inspire inquiry and reflection among all who encounter their story. The case of Kaspar Hauser. The enigmatic tale of Kaspar Hauser unfolds as one of the most perplexing and enduring mysteries of the 19th century, a narrative that has fascinated historians, scholars, and the curious alike for nearly 2 centuries as it challenges conventional understandings of identity, origin, and the profound impact of isolation on the human psyche. And while the precise details of his early life remain shrouded in uncertainty, the story of this young man, who emerged into the public consciousness in the streets of Nuremberg in 1828 with little more than a few cryptic clues about his origins and a remarkable lack of socialization, has continued to inspire a multitude of theories and interpretations that range from the plausible to the fantastical, each attempting to account for his mysterious arrival, his subsequent behavior, and the series of events that culminated in his tragic and controversial death. Emerging one fateful day in a society that was rapidly evolving yet still steeped in the rigid structures of class, family, and authority, Kaspar Hauser was discovered wandering the cobbled streets with an appearance that bore the unmistakable marks of someone who had been raised in total isolation, his physical demeanor and peculiar mannerisms hinting at a life spent cut off from human interaction, leading many to speculate that he had been confined for years in a dark, cramped cell or secluded environment that had not allowed him the normal developmental experiences of childhood and socialization, and indeed, his limited vocabulary, unorthodox behavior, and apparent naivety about the world around him painted a picture of a person whose entire existence had been confined to a narrow and controlled setting, a notion that spurred widespread conjecture that he might have been the product of a deliberate experiment in isolation or, as some more conspiratorial accounts suggest, the secret offspring of nobility whose identity had been deliberately obscured for reasons of political intrigue. As the mystery deepened with each passing day, Kaspar Hauser became a living symbol of the interplay between nature and nurture, a real-life enigma whose very existence seemed to defy the expectations of a society structured by rigid hierarchies and predetermined roles, and his arrival in Nuremberg, marked by his inability to articulate a coherent narrative of his past or even the simplest details of his personal history, ignited a firestorm of curiosity that led local authorities, intellectuals, and even members of the aristocracy to become embroiled in a relentless quest for answers as they pored over the scant evidence available, from the few belongings he possessed to the sparse and often contradictory accounts of his behavior, in an effort to discern whether he was merely a victim of extreme deprivation or the unwitting pawn in a larger and more sinister plot. The initial investigations, conducted in an era when forensic science was in its infancy and the tools of modern analysis were yet to be invented, relied heavily on eyewitness testimonies, personal observations, and the emerging field of psychology to piece together a plausible narrative. Yet despite their best efforts, the true origin of Kaspar Hauser remained tantalizingly out of reach, ensnared by layers of ambiguity and the inherent difficulty of reconstructing a life that had been, by all accounts, deliberately obscured, and this very opacity lent itself to a plethora of interpretations, some of which posited that he was indeed a member of a princely family whose existence had been suppressed to avoid scandal or political fallout, while others argued that he was the victim of an elaborate hoax orchestrated by those who sought to manipulate public opinion or divert attention from more pressing social or political issues of the day. As the public debate raged on, the figure of Kaspar Hauser assumed a mythic quality, his tragic story becoming interwoven with the cultural fabric of the time and serving as a potent allegory for the loss of innocence, the corrupting influence of power, and the enduring human quest for identity and belonging. And as the years passed, the case of Kaspar Hauser continued to resonate with successive generations, inspiring a wide range of artistic, literary, and scholarly works that sought to capture the essence of his plight and to explore the profound philosophical questions raised by his existence, including the nature of human development, the impact of social isolation on psychological well-being, and the extent to which one's identity is shaped by the environment in which one is raised. Throughout the decades that followed his mysterious emergence, numerous investigators revisited the case with renewed vigor, employing increasingly sophisticated methodologies and drawing upon insights from emerging disciplines such as psychiatry, anthropology, and even early forensic science. Yet, despite these modern efforts, the central questions surrounding Kaspar Hauser's origins and the circumstances of his life remain stubbornly unresolved, leaving a legacy of intrigue that continues to captivate the imagination of researchers and laypeople alike. And it is precisely this enduring ambiguity that has transformed his story into a symbol of the eternal human fascination with the unknown, a reminder that even in an age of rapid scientific and technological advancement, there remain mysteries that defy easy explanation and that challenge our most deeply held assumptions about the nature of human existence. Indeed, the case of Kaspar Hauser has come to represent a broader inquiry into the effects of extreme deprivation and the absence of socialization on the human mind, prompting contemporary scholars to revisit his story not only as a historical curiosity but also as a case study in the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit under conditions of severe isolation. And while some modern analyses have attempted to contextualize his behavior within the framework of psychological disorders or developmental delays caused by years of confinement, others have argued that his enigmatic personality and the sparse details of his early life suggest a deliberate and purposeful concealment of identity, one that may have been orchestrated by powerful figures seeking to engineer a narrative that served their own ends, thereby casting Kaspar Hauser not merely as a passive victim of circumstance but as a central figure in a dramatic tale of intrigue, betrayal, and the struggle for control in a society rife with political machinations and secret agendas. As the narrative unfolded, the public's perception of Kaspar Hauser evolved from that of a pitiable foundling to a figure of profound symbolic significance, embodying the tension between the natural state of human innocence and the corrupting forces of civilization, and his very existence prompted heated debates about the ethics of state intervention, the responsibilities of those in power towards vulnerable individuals, and the possibility that his life had been manipulated as part of a broader strategy to maintain social order or to conceal uncomfortable truths about the ruling elite. And in this context, every new piece of evidence or alleged piece of evidence was scrutinized not only for its factual content but also for the implications it carried for our understanding of human rights, identity, and the nature of freedom in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. Over time, the legend of Kaspar Hauser grew to encompass a wide array of theories that touched upon diverse fields of inquiry, from the possibility of a genetic anomaly resulting from long-term confinement in darkness to the more outlandish notion that he was a messenger sent to herald a new era of social or political transformation. And while many of these ideas have been dismissed by mainstream historians as fanciful or unsupported by the available data, they nonetheless serve as a testament to the powerful allure of mystery and the human tendency to seek meaning in the inexplicable, tendency that has driven countless investigations, debates, and creative reinterpretations of his life story. Despite the passage of nearly 2 centuries since his sudden appearance in Nuremberg, the case of Kaspar Hauser remains a focal point for discussions about the limits of human knowledge, the reliability of memory and testimony, and the ways in which history is constructed and reconstructed over time, with each generation adding its own layer of interpretation to the narrative. Thus, ensuring that his story continues to be a living, evolving enigma that challenges us to confront the inherent uncertainties of the past while reflecting on the profound mysteries that still persist in the present. As modern technology and interdisciplinary research methods have advanced, scholars have revisited the primary sources and eyewitness accounts related to Kaspar Hauser with a critical eye, employing techniques ranging from forensic document analysis to psychological profiling in an effort to disentangle the threads of truth from the webs of myth and conjecture that have long surrounded his identity. And while these efforts have yielded some insights, such as a better understanding of the conditions under which extreme isolation can alter cognitive and behavioral development, they have not succeeded in providing a definitive resolution to the central questions of who Kaspar Hauser really was, where he came from, or what his life might have been like before he was thrust into the bewildering light of public attention. Instead, his story persists as a complex tapestry of fact, fiction, and folklore, a narrative that resists a tidy or conclusive ending and that continues to invite inquiry, debate, and speculation among those who are drawn to its profound sense of mystery and its haunting portrayal of a human life marred by the absence of a known past. In many ways, the enduring fascination with Kaspar Hauser can be seen as a reflection of our collective desire to understand the boundaries of human potential, the consequences of isolation, and the interplay between nature and nurture in shaping who we are, a desire that has driven not only academic research but also inspired countless works of literature, art, and film that seek to capture the essence of his tragic and unresolved story, and which, in doing so, ensure that his memory remains alive in the cultural consciousness long after the factual details of his existence have faded into the mists of time. Ultimately, the case of Kaspar Hauser stands as a poignant reminder that some mysteries defy complete resolution, that the search for truth is often a journey marked by more questions than answers, and that in the interplay of light and shadow, of certainty and doubt, lies the true essence of what it means to be human. A ceaseless quest for understanding in a world where the past is forever intertwined with myth, and where the enigmatic figure of Kaspar Hauser continues to beckon us toward the elusive boundaries of identity, destiny, and the inexplicable power of human isolation, leaving us with a legacy of unanswered questions that serve as an enduring challenge to our intellect and our imagination, inviting each successive generation to peer into the depths of a life that remains as mysterious and beguiling today as it did nearly 200 years ago. The disappearance of the Ninth Roman Legion. The mystery of the lost Ninth Roman Legion has haunted the annals of history for nearly 2 millennia, its disappearance shrouded in uncertainty and cloaked in the mists of conflicting accounts, fragmentary evidence, and tantalizing theories that have drawn scholars, historians, and enthusiasts into a relentless pursuit of truth regarding one of the most enigmatic episodes of ancient military history. And while the Legion was once celebrated as one of Rome's most formidable fighting forces, its abrupt and inexplicable vanishing has left behind an enduring puzzle that continues to provoke intense debate and speculation over the centuries. Emerging during a time when the might of Rome was at its zenith, the Ninth Roman Legion, also known as Legio IX Hispana, had carved its name into the chronicles of the empire through countless campaigns, heroic battles, and displays of tactical brilliance across the vast territories of a world-spanning power. Yet, despite its illustrious reputation, the Legion's fate became a subject of mystery when historical records abruptly ceased to mention it after a certain point in the early 2nd century CE, giving rise to a host of theories that range from catastrophic military defeat on the turbulent frontiers of Britain to administrative reassignments and eventual disbandment in the wake of internal reforms. And although modern archaeology and historical inquiry have made significant strides in reconstructing the military and political landscape of ancient Rome, the disappearance of this legion remains an open question, a tantalizing enigma that invites us to consider the interplay between the imperatives of imperial ambition and the unpredictable forces of nature, human error, and political intrigue. Many accounts suggest that the Ninth Legion, which had served with distinction during campaigns in Germania and Britannia, may have met its end during a fierce conflict against native tribes in the unforgiving highlands of northern Britain, where the Legion was deployed to quell rising unrest and consolidate Roman control over the distant provinces. And it is here, amidst the rugged terrain and inclement weather, that some historians believe the Legion suffered a catastrophic defeat, its soldiers overwhelmed by both the hostile environment and the ferocity of guerrilla warfare waged by indigenous groups whose intimate knowledge of the land gave them a decisive advantage, and though such a scenario is supported by sporadic archaeological finds, such as remnants of hastily abandoned fortifications, scattered weaponry, and the eerie silence of once thriving military camps, definitive evidence linking these discoveries to the final fate of the Ninth remains elusive, leaving room for alternative interpretations and fueling persistent debate among experts. Indeed, one of the more popular theories posits that the Legion, after being redeployed from the heartland of the empire to the distant and volatile frontier of Britannia, became embroiled in a series of battles so devastating that it was effectively wiped out in a single, catastrophic engagement, a notion that is often romanticized in literature and popular culture as a tale of valor and tragic sacrifice. Yet critics of this view argue that such a dramatic and total annihilation would likely have been chronicled more thoroughly by contemporary historians and inscribed in the myriad military records that the Romans were known for, prompting some to propose instead that the disappearance of the Ninth was not the result of a singular battle, but rather a gradual process of attrition, administrative reorganization, or even deliberate erasure from official records in order to conceal a humiliating defeat or strategic failure that might have undermined the prestige of the imperial administration. Another line of inquiry suggests that the Legion may have been reassigned to a distant province in the eastern reaches of the empire, where it might have been absorbed into a larger military formation or met its end in a conflict that, over the course of time, became lost in the labyrinthine bureaucratic annals of Rome. And while there are tantalizing hints in fragmentary inscriptions and sparse references in later texts that hint at the possible redeployment of Roman forces to regions such as the Danube frontier or even the deserts of the Near East, the evidence remains circumstantial at best, leaving historians to grapple with the frustrating possibility that the true fate of the Ninth Roman Legion may have been deliberately obscured by political expediency or the ravages of time. The complexity of the issue is compounded by the fact that Roman military history is replete with instances of legions being disbanded, renumbered, or merged with other units as the empire adapted to shifting geopolitical realities, and it is conceivable that the Ninth, once a symbol of Roman martial prowess, might have been quietly integrated into a new formation without any dramatic newsworthy finale, a process that would have allowed its identity to fade gradually into the larger mosaic of Roman military organization, thereby explaining the abrupt cessation of its independent mention in surviving records. Further complicating matters is the tendency of later medieval chroniclers and Renaissance historians to romanticize or mythologize the fate of lost legions, sometimes projecting onto them narratives of heroism, betrayal, or divine retribution that reflect more the concerns and imaginations of later eras than the stark realities of ancient warfare. And as a result, modern reconstructions of the events surrounding the Ninth Roman Legion are often entangled with layers of legend and folklore that blur the boundaries between historical fact and imaginative embellishment, a phenomenon that is not uncommon when dealing with the sparse and sometimes ambiguous evidence of antiquity. In addition to the military and administrative considerations, there is also the cultural and psychological impact of the disappearance of the Ninth to consider. For in the collective memory of Rome and in the enduring mythos of the empire, the fate of this legion has come to symbolize the inevitable fragility of even the mightiest institutions when confronted with the capricious forces of nature, the unforeseen consequences of strategic overreach, and the inexorable march of time that spares none, a reminder that no amount of military discipline, organizational efficiency, or imperial ambition can ultimately shield human endeavors from the vagaries of fate and the relentless entropy that underlies the course of history. The disappearance of the Ninth Roman Legion thus serves as a potent allegory for the limits of power and the ephemeral nature of glory, inspiring generations of historians to ponder not only the specific circumstances that led to its vanishing, but also the broader lessons that can be gleaned from a narrative marked by both brilliance and mystery, where the heroic exploits of soldiers on distant battlefields are rendered all the more poignant by the shadow of oblivion that hangs over their legacy. As scholars continue to unearth new evidence from excavations of ancient military camps, analyze inscriptions on weathered stone, and apply modern techniques such as satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar to trace the movements of Roman forces across the rugged landscapes of Britain and beyond, each new discovery offers a tantalizing glimpse into a world where order and chaos, triumph and disaster are inextricably intertwined, and where the disappearance of a single legion can illuminate the profound and often contradictory dynamics that have shaped the rise and fall of one of history's greatest empires. Yet despite these advances, the story of the Ninth remains stubbornly incomplete, a puzzle with missing pieces that continue to defy a definitive resolution, leaving us with more questions than answers and a lingering sense of awe at the vastness of history and the inevitability of loss, no matter how mighty the hand that wields power. Some scholars have even ventured to suggest that the mystery of the Ninth Roman Legion may be emblematic of a deeper historical truth about the nature of memory and record-keeping in ancient times, where the passage of centuries, the decay of materials, and the selective preservation of documents have conspired to obscure events that once held great significance, and in doing so, have transformed what might have been a straightforward military defeat into a legend replete with symbolic resonance, inviting us to reflect on the ways in which history is constructed, remembered, and ultimately lost in the relentless currents of time. In this context, the fate of the Ninth can be seen not only as a military mystery but also as a narrative about the limits of human understanding, a reminder that even the most disciplined and systematic cultures are vulnerable to the erasure of their own records, and that the stories we tell about our past are inevitably colored by the perspectives and biases of those who survive to recount them. Moreover, the enduring fascination with the Lost Legion has had a significant impact on popular culture, inspiring works of historical fiction, epic films, and scholarly treatises that seek to capture the drama and tragedy of a force that once epitomized the might of Rome. And while these creative endeavors often take liberties with the historical record, they nonetheless attest to the profound emotional and intellectual allure that the mystery holds, resonating with contemporary audiences who, faced with their own uncertainties and challenges, find in the legend of the Ninth a timeless meditation on the transience of power and the inescapable passage of time. As we look back over the centuries to a period when legions marched in formation under the banner of an empire that spanned continents, and when the fate of a single military unit could alter the course of history, we are reminded of the profound complexity of the ancient world, a realm where the interplay of human ambition, environmental forces, and the inexorable tide of change produced outcomes that continue to baffle and inspire us today. And in the silent ruins of forts and the faded inscriptions on stone that hint at the presence of the once mighty Ninth, there exists a whisper of stories untold, sacrifices unrecorded, and mysteries unresolved, a testament to the enduring power of history to both reveal and conceal the truth. Indeed, the disappearance of the Ninth Roman Legion remains a subject of such multifaceted inquiry that it invites not only a detailed forensic reconstruction of military campaigns and administrative decisions, but also a broader philosophical reflection on the nature of legacy and remembrance, urging us to confront the possibility that some aspects of our past are destined to remain enigmatic, forever locked in the interplay between what was recorded and what was lost, and that in the vast continuum of time, even the most celebrated institutions can vanish without a trace, leaving behind only the echoes of their existence and the enduring questions that define the human condition. Thus, as we continue to search for clues in the dust of antiquity and piece together the scattered fragments of a once proud legion, we are compelled to acknowledge that the mystery of the Ninth is as much a reflection on the limits of historical inquiry as it is a dramatic narrative of military ambition and tragic loss, a narrative that challenges us to look beyond the surface of written records and to delve into the intangible realm of myth, memory, and the inexorable forces that shape the destiny of civilizations. And in doing so, we come to appreciate that the disappearance of the Ninth Roman Legion is not simply an isolated incident confined to the annals of military history, but rather a profound commentary on the nature of impermanence itself, reminding us that even the most powerful empires and their formidable armies are subject to the ravages of time and the whims of fate, a lesson that resonates through the ages and continues to captivate our collective imagination, urging us to question what remains of our own legacies and how future generations might one day grapple with the mysteries that we, too, will inevitably leave behind. The disappearance of the Mayan civilization. The gradual collapse of the great Mayan civilization remains one of the most perplexing and evocative enigmas of pre-Columbian history, a mystery that has drawn the attention of historians, archaeologists, climatologists, and curious minds for decades as they labor to piece together the puzzle of how a sophisticated, culturally vibrant society that once spanned vast regions of Mesoamerica could seemingly vanish into the mists of time, leaving behind monumental ruins, intricate hieroglyphs, and a legacy of myths and legends that continue to inspire wonder and debate in equal measure. In exploring this mystery, one is immediately struck by the apparent paradox of a civilization that reached extraordinary heights in art, astronomy, mathematics, and urban planning, constructing awe-inspiring cities such as Tikal, Palenque, Copan, and Chichen Itza, only to experience a decline so profound that entire population centers were abandoned, monumental inscriptions fell silent, and the intricate social and political networks that had once unified the Mayan world fragmented into isolated pockets whose fates are known only through scattered archaeological remains. And despite decades of intensive research and the application of modern scientific techniques, ranging from radiocarbon dating and paleo-environmental reconstructions to advanced satellite imagery and geophysical surveys, the question of what triggered the disappearance of the Mayan civilization continues to defy a simple or singular explanation, instead suggesting that a confluence of factors, both environmental and human in origin, may have conspired over several centuries to erode the foundations of this once mighty society. Among the many theories that have been advanced, environmental degradation has emerged as a compelling candidate, with scholars pointing to evidence of prolonged droughts, deforestation, soil erosion, and water scarcity as factors that could have gradually undermined agricultural productivity in a region where the sustainability of large urban centers depended on the careful management of limited natural resources, and the growing body of paleo-environmental data, including sediment cores and isotopic analyses from lakes and cave formations, seems to support the idea that a series of severe droughts struck the lowland regions of the Yucatan Peninsula during the Terminal Classic period, placing enormous stress on the agrarian economy and igniting social unrest as communities struggled to adapt to a rapidly changing climate. However, environmental pressures alone do not provide a complete account of the collapse, for they must be understood in conjunction with the complex socio-political dynamics that characterize the Mayan world, a mosaic of city-states and kingdoms often locked in fierce competition for resources, prestige, and religious legitimacy, where warfare, political intrigue, and shifting alliances played a crucial role in shaping the destiny of entire regions. And it is plausible that as environmental conditions worsened, the stresses on the society were amplified by increased conflict among rival polities, leading to cycles of warfare that further disrupted trade, weakened central authority, and undermined the capacity of the elites to mobilize the labor and resources necessary for large-scale infrastructural projects, such as the construction of reservoirs, terraces, and irrigation systems that had once helped to mitigate the vagaries of nature. Indeed, the archaeological record reveals a marked increase in signs of conflict, such as fortifications, evidence of violence on skeletal remains, and iconography depicting warfare and sacrifice, suggesting that as resources dwindled and competition intensified, the mechanisms of social control and state formation that had once held the Mayan world together began to crumble, giving way to a period of fragmentation and decentralization that has come to be known as the collapse of the classic Mayan civilization, a term that, while convenient, belies the fact that the process was neither uniform nor simultaneous across the region, with some centers experiencing rapid abandonment while others lingered on for centuries before eventually fading into obscurity. In addition to environmental and political factors, scholars have also examined the role of economic and demographic pressures in contributing to the Mayan decline, noting that as the population grew and urban centers expanded, the demand for agricultural land and natural resources increased to unsustainable levels, leading to overexploitation of the land and the eventual degradation of the very systems that had supported the civilization's growth. And this ecological overshoot, combined with periodic climatic downturns, may have triggered a downward spiral in which the loss of agricultural productivity led to malnutrition, disease, and social disintegration, creating a feedback loop that exacerbated the challenges facing the Mayan people. Furthermore, the ideological and religious dimensions of Mayan society, which were inextricably linked to notions of cosmic order, divine kingship, and ritual sacrifice, may also have been affected by the shifting conditions of the environment and society, as the failure of rulers to deliver prosperity and stability in times of crisis undermined their legitimacy and sparked crises of faith among the populace, thereby eroding the ideological foundations that had long sustained the social order. And some researchers have even suggested that religious or ritualistic practices, such as the excessive draining of resources for ceremonial purposes or the invocation of apocalyptic prophecies, may have contributed to the destabilization of the state, although such interpretations remain highly contested. Another intriguing dimension of the Mayan collapse is the possibility that the process was not an abrupt or catastrophic event, but rather a gradual transformation in which the centralized, monumental culture of the classic period gave way to a more dispersed, localized form of social organization, a transition that is evidenced by the continued occupation of certain regions and the survival of Mayan traditions long after the decline of the great urban centers. And in this view, the so-called collapse is not so much a story of complete disappearance as it is one of profound transformation, in which the forces of history reconfigured the political, economic, and cultural landscape of Mesoamerica, leading to the emergence of new identities and forms of social organization that, while echoing the legacy of the classic Maya, also reflect the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming change. Indeed, many contemporary Mayan communities in Guatemala, Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador maintain cultural traditions, languages, and practices that trace their heritage back to the ancient civilization, suggesting that while the grand palaces and ceremonial centers of the classic period may have fallen silent, the essence of Mayan culture was never entirely lost, but rather subsumed into a continuous, if altered, narrative of survival and reinvention. Yet, despite these insights, the question of why the once flourishing Mayan civilization experienced such a dramatic and widespread decline continues to elude definitive explanation, and each new discovery, whether it be an inscription carved into stone, a cache of ceramics unearthed from a long-forgotten settlement, or a piece of environmental data extracted from the layers of ancient sediment, adds both clarity and complexity to a story that is as multifaceted as it is enigmatic, prompting scholars to reconsider long-held assumptions and to explore innovative theoretical frameworks that account for the interplay of climate, conflict, demography, economics, and ideology in shaping the destiny of societies. In this context, the disappearance of the Mayan civilization stands not only as a historical mystery of epic proportions, but also as a cautionary tale about the delicate balance between human ingenuity and the forces of nature, a narrative that underscores the vulnerability of even the most advanced and sophisticated cultures when confronted with the dual challenges of environmental variability and social turbulence, and it compels modern observers to reflect on the lessons of the past in light of contemporary issues such as climate change, resource depletion, and the resilience of social institutions under stress. The enduring fascination with the Mayan collapse lies in its capacity to evoke a sense of wonder and melancholy as we imagine the once thriving metropolises pulsating with the rhythms of daily life, the marketplaces teeming with activity, the rituals performed under the gaze of towering pyramids and intricately carved stelae, and yet, in a span of a few centuries, these symbols of human achievement were reduced to silent ruins overtaken by the jungle, their grandeur fading into the whispers of the wind and the murmur of rain on stone. And as researchers continue to probe the layers of history with ever more refined techniques, from LiDAR surveys that reveal hidden structures beneath dense foliage to stable isotope analyses that reconstruct ancient diets and migration patterns, each new piece of evidence offers a glimpse into the complexities of Mayan society, revealing a tapestry of human experience that is as rich and varied as the mosaic of its ruins scattered across the landscape of Mesoamerica. At the same time, the proliferation of legends, mythologies, and speculative narratives surrounding the Mayan collapse attests to the enduring power of mystery in shaping our collective imagination. As writers, artists, and filmmakers draw inspiration from the haunting images of deserted cities reclaimed by nature, of kings and priests whose voices have long been silenced, and of a civilization whose achievements and struggles continue to resonate with the universal themes of ambition, resilience, and mortality. And it is within this fertile ground of inquiry and imagination that the mystery of the Mayan disappearance persists, challenging us to confront the uncertainties of the past and to acknowledge that, despite our best efforts to decode the secrets of history, some chapters may forever remain shrouded in ambiguity, their true narratives obscured by the inexorable passage of time and the relentless forces of nature. Thus, as we stand before the majestic ruins of ancient cities and contemplate the silent testimony of weathered carvings and crumbling temples, we are reminded that the legacy of the Mayan civilization is not defined solely by its collapse, but also by its profound contributions to human culture, knowledge, and the enduring spirit of innovation that continues to inspire generations. And in this light, the disappearance of the Mayan civilization emerges not simply as an event to be explained or a problem to be solved, but as a dynamic process of transformation and renewal, a story of rise and fall, continuity and change, that speaks to the impermanent nature of human endeavors and the eternal quest to understand our place in a world where the forces of history, environment, and human will converge in ways that are as unpredictable as they are awe-inspiring, leaving us with a legacy of questions that challenge our assumptions and fuel our curiosity about the fragile balance between civilization and nature, a balance that has determined the fate of societies throughout the ages and continues to shape our collective future as we strive to learn from the past and navigate the uncertainties of the present. The Tomb of Genghis Khan. The mystery of the Tomb of Genghis Khan has captivated historians, archaeologists, adventurers, and scholars for centuries, standing as one of the most elusive and enduring enigmas of world history. And it is a subject that continues to evoke both scholarly debate and popular fascination as countless expeditions, theories, and legends intertwine around the fate of the great Mongol conqueror, whose empire stretched from the steppes of Central Asia to the fringes of Europe and the heart of China. Despite the immense historical impact of Genghis Khan, whose real name was Temujin, and whose military genius and visionary leadership forged one of the largest contiguous empires the world has ever seen, the precise location of his final resting place remains shrouded in mystery, hidden amidst the vast and rugged landscapes of Mongolia, where the secrets of the past are often guarded by nature itself and by the deliberate actions of those who have inherited the cultural memory of the Mongol people. And as a result, the tomb of Genghis Khan has come to symbolize not only the physical absence of his remains, but also the intangible legacy of his life and the empire he built, a legacy that is steeped in both awe-inspiring achievements and violent conquests, and whose echoes continue to resonate in the traditions, myths, and political narratives of modern Central Asia. From ancient chronicles to modern scholarly treatises, the accounts of Genghis Khan's burial have been as varied as they are contradictory, with early Persian and Chinese sources offering tantalizing clues that suggest his tomb was constructed with elaborate ritual and secrecy, perhaps even hidden in a remote, uncharted region of the Mongolian steppe where the elements of wind, sand, and time have conspired to erase all traces of its existence. And these accounts have only deepened the intrigue, prompting modern researchers to consider that the tomb might have been intentionally concealed by his loyal followers, who believed that the resting place of the great Khan should remain forever a secret, accessible only to those who are deemed worthy by fate or by divine providence. And this deliberate obscuration has spawned numerous theories, ranging from the possibility that the tomb lies beneath an unassuming mound in the Kentai Mountains, revered as sacred by local nomads, to more exotic suggestions that it may have been lost in the labyrinthine expanses of the Gobi Desert, where shifting sands can bury even the most magnificent structures without a trace. The quest for the tomb has spanned generations, with modern archaeologists employing advanced techniques such as satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and LiDAR mapping in hopes of detecting anomalies in the landscape that might hint at buried chambers or ancient constructions. Yet despite these technological advancements, the search remains frustratingly inconclusive, as the harsh and often inhospitable terrain of Mongolia presents significant challenges to systematic excavation and survey. And furthermore, the cultural sensitivity surrounding the subject has led to restrictions on research in certain areas, as many Mongolians hold the tomb in deep reverence, considering it a symbol of national pride and a sacred site that should not be disturbed by modern scientific inquiry. And this tension between the desire to uncover historical truths and the need to respect traditional beliefs has only added layers of complexity to the mystery. Indeed, the very idea of locating the tomb of Genghis Khan is wrapped in an aura of both romanticism and solemnity, evoking images of intrepid explorers braving endless steppes, rugged mountains, and merciless deserts in search of a lost empire. And the narrative of the tomb's concealment has been woven into the fabric of Mongolian folklore, where it is said that the site is protected by supernatural forces or cursed to bring misfortune to those who dare to seek it out, and such legends have served to deter many would-be treasure hunters and adventurers, even as they have inspired others to risk life and limb in pursuit of a discovery that, if made, could rewrite our understanding of one of history's greatest figures. The historical context of Genghis Khan's burial is itself a subject of intense scrutiny, for despite his reputation as a ruthless warrior whose conquests resulted in the deaths of millions, he was also known for his astute leadership, his innovative approach to administration, and his deep respect for the traditions of the peoples he conquered. And it is within this duality that the enigma of his tomb is perhaps best understood, as it embodies the paradox of a leader who was both celebrated and feared, whose life was marked by brutal military campaigns, yet also by a profound vision of unity and cultural synthesis. And it is this complex legacy that has fueled the desire to locate his final resting place, as doing so would not only satisfy a historical curiosity, but might also offer insights into the rituals, beliefs, and political strategies of the Mongol Empire during its formative years. Scholarly debates about the tomb often focus on the sparse and sometimes ambiguous references found in the annals of contemporaneous chroniclers, who, despite their limited means of recording and preserving information, left behind hints that suggest a burial marked by extraordinary secrecy, possibly involving elaborate funeral rites that blended shamanistic traditions with the emerging bureaucratic practices of the Mongol state. And while some historians argue that the tomb was designed to be a temporary memorial until the Khan could be venerated in perpetuity through oral tradition and symbolic monuments, others maintain that the burial was intended as a permanent and unassailable final resting place, constructed with the intention of defying the ravages of time and ensuring that the memory of Genghis Khan would endure for eternity. And this latter interpretation is bolstered by accounts of grand funerary processions and the establishment of sacred sites that were said to be imbued with the spirit of the great conqueror. Yet the physical evidence for such monumental construction has proven elusive, leaving modern investigators to rely largely on a combination of literary sources, local legends, and the occasional fortuitous archaeological discovery that offers only fragmentary glimpses into a long-forgotten past. Moreover, the political implications of discovering the tomb are profound, as the revelation of its location could have significant ramifications for national identity in Mongolia and for the broader understanding of Central Asian history, potentially serving as a unifying symbol in a region where the legacy of the Mongol Empire continues to be a subject of both pride and contention. And it is no wonder that successive governments and cultural institutions have expressed a keen interest in preserving the sanctity of the site, even as they struggle with the competing demands of historical inquiry, tourism, and national symbolism. And this delicate balance between public curiosity and the imperative to protect a revered cultural heritage has further complicated efforts to mount a systematic and large-scale search for the tomb. Indeed, many prominent scholars and research teams have mounted expeditions over the past few decades, each employing increasingly sophisticated methodologies and collaborating across disciplines in an effort to overcome the challenges posed by the remote and rugged terrain. And while these endeavors have sometimes yielded tantalizing hints, such as unusual concentrations of artifacts, anomalies in the landscape, or even oral histories passed down through generations of nomads, none have definitively pinpointed the location of the tomb, leaving it to remain one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in the world of archaeology. As the search continues, debates rage over the best strategies to adopt, with some advocating for a more cautious, culturally sensitive approach that prioritizes the wishes and traditions of the local people, while others argue that the relentless march of scientific progress necessitates a bold and uncompromising commitment to uncovering the truth, regardless of the potential disruptions to age-old customs. And this clash of perspectives is emblematic of the broader challenges inherent in reconciling modern academic research with the intangible and often ineffable nature of cultural memory and identity. In parallel with these debates, the mythic dimensions of the tomb have grown ever more elaborate, with a rich tapestry of folklore, poetry, and even cinematic portrayals adding layers of meaning to the mystery, transforming the tomb into a symbol not merely of Genghis Khan's individual greatness, but of the power of legend to transcend the boundaries of time and space, and to speak to the universal human longing for connection with a past that, while distant and fragmented, continues to shape our present consciousness in profound and unexpected ways. The interplay between fact and myth in the narrative of the tomb of Genghis Khan is particularly fascinating, as it reveals the ways in which historical reality is inextricably intertwined with the imaginative capacities of the human mind, and how the act of seeking out the tomb becomes a metaphor for the broader quest for meaning in a world where the tangible and the transcendent coexist in a delicate, ever-shifting balance. And it is this interplay that has ensured the enduring allure of the tomb. As a subject of inquiry and inspiration, a beacon for those who believe that uncovering its secrets might one day unlock not only the final chapter in the life of one of history's most formidable leaders, but also a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped human civilization itself. As we examine the myriad factors that have contributed to the continued elusiveness of the tomb, from the deliberate efforts of its original custodians to ensure that it would remain hidden from the prying eyes of invaders and opportunists, to the relentless passage of time that has eroded the physical markers of its existence, to the complex cultural dynamics that have transformed it into a symbol of national pride and mystique, it becomes clear that the tomb of Genghis Khan is far more than a mere burial site, but rather a repository of memory, power, and aspiration, encapsulating within its legend the hopes, fears, and enduring legacy of a people whose influence continues to resonate across continents and centuries. And as modern researchers persist in their quest, armed with the tools of science and the insights of centuries of scholarship, the search for the tomb stands as a testament to humanity's unquenchable thirst for knowledge and our perennial desire to bridge the gap between the known and the unknowable, between the tangible relics of a bygone era and the intangible currents of myth and memory that flow through the collective consciousness of our species. And in this relentless pursuit, the mystery of the tomb of Genghis Khan persists as an enduring challenge, an invitation to explore the hidden corners of history and to confront the fundamental questions of legacy, identity, and the inexorable passage of time. And while the ultimate discovery of the tomb may still lie on the distant horizon, the journey itself has enriched our understanding of the past and continues to inspire a profound appreciation for the intricate tapestry of human history, where even the greatest of empires must eventually surrender their secrets to the silent march of time, leaving behind only echoes, legends, and the ceaseless yearning of those who dare to dream of uncovering the final resting place of a man who, in life, reshaped the world, and in death, remains the greatest enigma of all. The Anjikuni Village Mystery, Canada. The strange case of an entire village that vanished without a trace, leaving only unanswered questions, has haunted the minds of researchers, historians, and curious souls for decades. And its baffling narrative unfolds as an eerie tapestry of speculation, eyewitness accounts, cultural lore, and investigative conundrums that continue to defy a clear explanation despite the passage of time and the relentless scrutiny of modern inquiry. It all began in the remote northern reaches of Canada, in a region shrouded by dense forests, icy winds, and vast, unforgiving landscapes where the rhythm of nature governs the pace of life and the margins between myth and reality blur into obscurity. And according to accounts passed down through generations of local indigenous peoples and early European settlers alike, there existed a small, unassuming village known as Anjikuni whose inhabitants, living in relative isolation from the rapidly modernizing world beyond their forested enclave, suddenly and inexplicably disappeared without any warning or trace, leaving behind a ghostly silence that reverberated through the barren winter months and set off a chain reaction of wonder, fear, and relentless investigative efforts that have since become the subject of countless articles, books, documentaries, and even fictionalized retellings in an attempt to piece together the lost puzzle of this vanished community. Early records and oral traditions suggest that Anjikuni was a vibrant, close-knit settlement where families worked the land, hunted the abundant game of the region, and maintained intricate social and spiritual rituals that connected them to the natural world around them. And despite the harsh climatic conditions that one might expect in such a remote part of Canada, the villagers had developed a resilient way of life, adapting their customs and technologies to survive the brutal winters and short summers. But then, almost as if swallowed by the unforgiving wilderness itself, the village of Anjikuni ceased to exist in any documented form, with eyewitnesses later recounting that they stumbled upon abandoned dwellings, scattered personal belongings, and even half-finished meals left on rustic tables, all of which painted an unnerving picture of a community that had vanished in the midst of daily life, leaving no indication of struggle, flight, or even the natural decline of a dying populace. As word of this mysterious disappearance spread, various theories emerged, each more speculative than the last, ranging from the possibility that the villagers had been forced to flee due to a sudden outbreak of disease, famine, or even a catastrophic natural event such as an avalanche or forest fire, to more outlandish ideas suggesting that the disappearance might have been the result of supernatural forces, alien abductions, or even a government cover-up designed to conceal secret experiments in remote wilderness areas. And while no theory has ever been conclusively proven, the mystery of Anjikuni has persisted in the public imagination as a quintessential example of how nature, fate, and perhaps forces beyond our understanding can conspire to erase an entire way of life without leaving a trace. Over the years, researchers have attempted to retrace the steps of those fateful days by examining archival documents, interviewing descendants of regional indigenous communities, and analyzing geographical and environmental data from the area surrounding the former village site. Yet the sparse nature of concrete evidence, combined with the passage of time and the inevitable distortions inherent in oral tradition, has rendered the investigation both frustrating and fascinating in equal measure. For every clue that emerges seems to lead to further questions rather than definitive answers, and the story of Anjikuni has grown to embody the very essence of an unsolvable mystery, a riddle suspended between the realms of history and myth. Some investigators point to climatic anomalies recorded in the region during the period in question, arguing that an unexpected and severe winter or a sudden shift in local weather patterns might have precipitated a mass exodus, forcing the villagers to abandon their homes in search of safer ground or more bountiful resources. And while such environmental factors are not uncommon in the harsh northern climes of Canada, they fail to fully account for the complete and total disappearance of an entire community, as even in the midst of disaster, remnants of human activity typically linger, such as scattered belongings, hastily abandoned structures, or lingering footprints in the snow. Yet in the case of Anjikuni, these signs were either inexplicably absent or so thoroughly erased by the passage of time that they offer little solace to those seeking to reconstruct the final moments of the village's existence. Another line of inquiry has focused on the possibility of human intervention, whether through violent conflict, kidnapping, or even relocation by a higher authority. And while some accounts hint at the presence of outsiders or the sudden appearance of strange figures in the vicinity around the time of the disappearance, no reliable documentation or corroborative testimony has ever emerged to support the notion that the villagers were forcibly removed or that they met with a violent fate. And the absence of any discernible struggle or evidence of a massacre further deepens the enigma, suggesting instead that if human agency played a role, it must have been executed with a level of precision and secrecy that defies easy explanation. Still, others have speculated that the disappearance of Anjikuni might be linked to the complex cultural and spiritual beliefs of its inhabitants, who may have possessed rituals or practices that led them to voluntarily leave their community in response to an omen, prophecy, or profound spiritual awakening. a theory that finds some resonance in the practices of various indigenous groups whose traditions sometimes include mass migrations or retreats into isolation as a form of renewal or escape from perceived corruption or imbalance in the natural order. Yet this hypothesis, too, is fraught with difficulties, as it would require a level of coordinated, collective action that seems improbable in the absence of any supporting evidence of ritualistic departure, communal warning signals, or even a temporary reappearance of the villagers in another location. As the decades turned into years and the modern era began to cast its analytical light upon the mystery of Anjikuni, advancements in technology provided new avenues for exploration, and aerial photography, satellite imagery, and even LiDAR mapping were employed in hopes of detecting subtle traces of the village's former layout or signs of recent disturbance in the area. Yet the results of these high-tech investigations have been inconclusive at best, often marred by the overwhelming interference of dense forest cover, shifting seasonal landscapes, and the inherent challenges of reconciling modern data with historical memory, and so the puzzle remains unsolved, its secrets hidden in a tangle of natural decay, human forgetfulness, and perhaps deliberate obfuscation. Throughout this long and winding journey of inquiry, the mystery of Anjikuni has grown to symbolize more than just the fate of a single village. It has come to represent the broader, often tragic story of isolated communities caught at the crossroads of tradition and modernity, of cultures that thrived in the quiet solitude of nature only to be swept away by forces that are as unpredictable as they are indifferent. And it serves as a poignant reminder of the transient nature of human endeavors in the face of time, nature, and the relentless march of change, a narrative that resonates with themes of loss, resilience, and the ultimate futility of trying to hold on to the ephemeral vestiges of a way of life that may have been destined to vanish under the weight of circumstance. The Anjikuni mystery has also had a profound impact on popular culture and the collective psyche, inspiring a plethora of speculative fiction, documentaries, and investigative reports that attempt to capture its haunting essence. And while many of these retellings take considerable creative license, they underscore the enduring appeal of a story that invites us to ponder the limits of human knowledge and the possibility that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, locked away in the silent testimony of abandoned dwellings, frozen landscapes, and the whispered legends of those who remember a time when the village of Anjikuni was more than just a name on a faded map, but a living, breathing community whose spirit, however elusive, continues to echo in the vast, lonely expanses of northern Canada. Indeed, the very allure of the Anjikuni village mystery lies in its ability to provoke as many questions as it answers, challenging us to confront the paradox of certainty and doubt, the intersection of fact and folklore, and the profound realization that history is often written in fragments, with entire chapters lost to the inexorable forces of nature and time, leaving us with only tantalizing hints of what once was and a deep, unyielding curiosity about what might have been. And as modern researchers persist in their quest, sifting through archival records, re-interviewing surviving witnesses, and even revisiting the site with ever more refined instruments in the hope of uncovering new clues, each small breakthrough seems to open up new avenues of inquiry, only to reveal further layers of complexity and mystery, underscoring the notion that the disappearance of Anjikuni is not a simple, isolated event, but a multifaceted phenomenon that touches on issues of environmental change, human vulnerability, cultural memory, and the enduring interplay between nature and civilization. In reflecting upon the legacy of this enigmatic village, one cannot help but be struck by the poignancy of its absence, a silence that speaks volumes about the fragility of human communities and the forces beyond our control. And it invites us to consider the ways in which modern society grapples with the same uncertainties that plagued its long-vanished predecessors, be it in the form of abrupt social upheavals, environmental disasters, or the inexorable loss of cultural heritage in an era of rapid change. And in this light, The mystery of Anjikuni transcends its status as a mere historical curiosity to become a mirror through which we examine our own relationship with time, place, and memory, challenging us to acknowledge that while we may seek to document, preserve, and understand every facet of our existence, there will always be fragments of our collective story that slip silently into oblivion, leaving behind a legacy of questions, longing, and the ceaseless drive to uncover truths that, like the ghostly remnants of a lost village, persist in the shadows of our awareness. Thus, the Anjikuni village mystery remains an open, unresolved chapter in the annals of history, a testament to the enduring allure of unsolved enigmas and a stark reminder that sometimes, despite our best efforts, the past refuses to yield its secrets, choosing instead to reside in the realm of the inexplicable, where reality and myth converge in a perpetual dance of uncertainty and wonder. And as we continue to search for answers in the frozen silence of Canada's northern wilderness, we are left with the bittersweet realization that some mysteries are destined to endure, their true meanings locked away in the interplay of nature, fate, and the ephemeral nature of human memory, challenging each generation to confront the limits of its understanding and to marvel at the enduring power of the unknown. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Keepers. The mystery of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse Keepers has endured through the ages as one of the most confounding and eerie maritime enigmas, a tale of disappearance that has both baffled and captivated the imagination of historians, researchers, and the general public alike. And it begins with the isolated, windswept isles in the North Atlantic, where a small lighthouse once stood sentinel over stormy seas and treacherous rocks, a beacon that for many years guided mariners safely through perilous waters, yet later became the stage for a series of events so inexplicable that they have spawned endless debate and speculation. In the autumn of 1900, when the weather was particularly savage and the sea churned with an almost supernatural fury, the small garrison of lighthouse keepers, consisting of 3 men who had long tended the beacon with diligence and dedication, vanished without a trace from the isolated outpost, leaving behind an eerie stillness and a wealth of unanswered questions that would haunt the annals of maritime lore for generations to come. And while contemporary newspapers and official reports offered sparse details that only deepened the mystery, later investigations uncovered curious anomalies such as missing personal belongings, a logbook that ended abruptly, and inexplicable alterations to the interior of the lighthouse that hinted at a hurried departure or perhaps even a struggle, though no definitive evidence of foul play was ever found. And as researchers pored over weather reports, maritime records, and the recollections of locals who recalled strange happenings on those remote isles, a multitude of theories emerged. Some proposing that a sudden freak wave or a violent storm surge might have swept the men away into the tumultuous sea, others suggesting that the keepers might have succumbed to an outbreak of illness or even been lured away by the seductive call of an unknown, perhaps supernatural presence that haunted the desolate lighthouse, and still others speculated that internal discord or an accidental misadventure might have precipitated a chain of events leading to their disappearance. Indeed, the isolation of the Flannan Isles, coupled with the relentless forces of nature that dominate the region, creates an environment in which reality and myth intermingle, giving rise to legends of ghostly apparitions, mysterious lights, and inexplicable sounds that seem to emanate from the void. And it is precisely this interplay between the stark, unyielding power of the natural world and the fragility of human endeavor that lies at the heart of the mystery. For the lighthouse itself, perched precariously on cliffs battered by ceaseless winds and waves, serves as a potent symbol of both hope and vulnerability. A man-made structure designed to offer guidance and protection, yet ultimately overwhelmed by the indifferent might of the elements. As the investigation unfolded over subsequent years, various expeditions were mounted to the Isles, and while some researchers reported finding traces of human presence, such as footprints in the soft earth near the base of the lighthouse and even the remains of a meal left half-prepared on a table, These clues did little to illuminate the ultimate fate of the keepers, leaving open the possibility that they might have been victims of an extraordinary natural event or, alternatively, that their disappearance was the result of a more subtle and inscrutable human error, perhaps an inadvertent decision spurred by superstition or psychological distress induced by the relentless isolation and harsh conditions. The psychological dimension of the mystery has proven to be as compelling as the physical evidence, for living in such a remote and unforgiving environment can exact a heavy toll on even the most stalwart individuals, and some modern psychologists have suggested that the extreme isolation, long periods of darkness during the winter months, and the constant stress of battling both the elements and the monotony of remote life might have induced hallucinations, delusions, or even a breakdown in judgment among the keepers, potentially leading them to abandon their post voluntarily in search of solace or escape, though this theory remains as speculative as many others. In the decades that followed the initial disappearance, the case of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers became a staple of maritime folklore, inspiring a rich body of literature, art, and even film that sought to capture the haunting atmosphere of the remote outpost and the unfathomable circumstances surrounding the vanishing of the men who had once guarded it. And with each retelling, the legend grew, absorbing elements of local superstition and the broader cultural anxieties about modernity, isolation, and the encroachment of nature on human constructs, until the mystery transcended its origins as a simple case of missing persons to become a symbol of the eternal struggle between human aspiration and the overwhelming, often indifferent, forces of the natural world. Researchers in more recent times have attempted to apply modern forensic techniques and scientific analyses to the scant evidence that remains, employing methods such as dendrochronology to analyze the growth rings of trees near the lighthouse for clues about historical weather patterns, and using ground-penetrating radar to scan for subterranean anomalies that might indicate hidden compartments or previously undiscovered storage areas. Yet despite these technological advances, the mystery remains unresolved, as no conclusive evidence has emerged to definitively explain how three competent, experienced men could vanish from a well-maintained lighthouse without leaving behind a trace of their presence or a clear indication of what might have driven them to such an extreme act. Some theories have even ventured into the realm of the paranormal, positing that the Isles might be haunted by the spirits of shipwrecked sailors or ancient deities who demand tribute, and that the lighthouse keepers, perhaps unwittingly, angered these supernatural forces, resulting in their abrupt removal from the mortal realm. But such ideas, while they resonate with the eerie atmosphere that pervades the narrative, remain firmly in the domain of speculation and myth rather than empirically substantiated fact. The historical record itself is marked by contradictions and gaps, with official inquiries into the disappearance offering little more than procedural explanations and a lack of cooperation between various agencies that at the time were more focused on preserving the reputation of maritime institutions than on uncovering the truth behind the incident. And as a result, much of what is known about the event comes not from contemporaneous documentation but from later recollections, folklore, and the imaginative reconstructions of writers who have sought to impose narrative coherence on an event that, by its very nature, defies easy explanation. In some accounts, the disappearance is portrayed as a tragic accident, a confluence of bad luck and the brutal forces of nature that conspired to snatch the keepers away from their post in an instant, leaving behind only the echo of their absence and the silent, empty rooms of the lighthouse as testimony to a life abruptly interrupted. While in other accounts the event is imbued with a darker, more mysterious significance, suggesting that the keepers may have discovered something forbidden, some secret hidden in the very fabric of the Isles, and that their disappearance was a deliberate act of erasure carried out by unseen powers or by their own desperate hands in a moment of existential crisis. The cultural impact of the Flannan Isles mystery cannot be overstated, as it has become a touchstone for discussions about isolation, the limits of human endurance, and the often tenuous boundary between rational explanation and the inexplicable. and its influence can be seen in the way that similar mysteries, ranging from other cases of mass disappearances in remote locations to modern urban legends about abandoned places, are framed and interpreted by both scholars and the general public, who are drawn to stories that challenge the certainty of scientific knowledge and evoke a sense of wonder at the vast, unknowable complexities of the world. Moreover, the mystery resonates on a deeply human level, tapping into primal fears of abandonment, the loss of companionship, and the possibility that in the vast, indifferent expanse of nature, the individual is ultimately powerless, and it forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that even the most carefully constructed bastions of civilization can be undone by forces that lie beyond our control, whether those forces be the relentless fury of the sea, the capricious whims of the weather, or the enigmatic workings of the human mind under duress. As modern historians continue to re-examine the case with fresh perspectives and innovative methodologies, the story of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers remains a powerful reminder of the fragility of human endeavors in the face of the natural world. A poignant narrative that encapsulates the tension between order and chaos, reason and mystery, and that, despite the passage of more than a century since the incident, continues to inspire new generations of investigators, storytellers, and dreamers to seek out the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface of our collective memory. Every expedition to the Isles, every archival document unearthed from dusty records, and every whispered account passed down through local folklore adds another layer to an already complex tapestry. A tapestry in which the threads of history, myth, and human emotion are inextricably interwoven into a pattern that defies easy interpretation or closure. And in this ongoing quest for understanding, the disappearance of the 3 lighthouse keepers serves as both a case study in the power of mystery to shape cultural consciousness and a stark, unyielding testament to the reality that some secrets, once lost to time and tide, may never be fully recovered or explained. Thus, as the winds continue to howl across the barren, rocky outcrops of the Flannan Isles and the lighthouse stands as a silent sentinel over memories both real and imagined, the enigma of its vanished keepers endures as an eternal puzzle, a narrative suspended between the certainties of documented history and the limitless realm of possibility, inviting us to reflect on the nature of truth, the limits of human knowledge, and the enduring allure of mysteries that challenge us to confront the unknown with both humility and wonder. And in doing so, the tale of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers remains not only a fascinating chapter in the annals of maritime history, but also a profound meditation on the ephemeral nature of life, the inexorable power of the natural world, and the timeless human impulse to seek meaning and connection in the face of an existence that is as fragile as it is fleeting, a legacy of unanswered questions that continues to beckon us from the shadows of the past and to remind us that, even in the most isolated corners of our world, the call of mystery is one that can never be silenced, resonating through the ages with a persistent, haunting refrain that challenges every generation to look beyond the confines of what is known and to embrace the possibility that some stories, no matter how deeply buried in the annals of time, are destined to endure as enigmatic monuments to the unfathomable depths of the human experience. The disappearance of Ambrose Bierce. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of Ambrose Bierce has enshrouded the legacy of this renowned American author, journalist, and satirist in a cloak of enigma that continues to perplex scholars, literary enthusiasts, and investigators alike, casting long shadows over the final chapter of a life that was as provocative in its output as it was mysterious in its conclusion. And while Bierce's works, from his acerbic wit in The Devil's Dictionary to his chilling war reports during the American Civil War, secured him a place in the annals of American literature and journalism, it is the circumstances of his vanishing that have become a subject of relentless speculation and myth-making over the decades, with his disappearance in 1913 from an expedition into the Mexican wilderness being recounted in myriad forms by those who claim to have pieced together fragments of evidence from eyewitness testimonies, sparse official records, and the murmurings of local folklore, all of which seem to conspire to paint a picture of a man who deliberately stepped away from the glare of public life or fell victim to the perils of an untamed land, leaving behind an enduring puzzle that has never been definitively solved. Indeed, Ambrose Bierce, whose pen carved a niche in the landscape of American letters through his scathing critiques of society and his fearless forays into the human condition in times of conflict, became an enigmatic figure not only because of the incisiveness of his writings but also because his final years were marked by an increasing withdrawal from conventional existence, culminating in a journey into the rugged and dangerous terrains of northern Mexico, where, amid the swirling chaos of revolutionary unrest and the unpredictable hazards of a frontier still largely governed by the forces of nature and the wills of disparate bandits, he vanished without a trace, leaving behind a legacy that is interwoven with themes of disappearance, anonymity, and the ultimate dissolution of identity. As we consider the manifold theories that have emerged over the years, from the idea that Bierce may have intentionally staged his own disappearance as a final act of defiance against a society he found increasingly hypocritical, to the more sinister possibilities that he might have been caught in the crossfire of political violence or abducted by forces unknown, the narrative grows ever more labyrinthine, drawing inferences from subtle cues in his earlier writings, his known political views, and his deep-seated cynicism about the institutions of power, all of which coalesce into a portrait of a man who was both a keen observer and a reluctant participant in the tumult of his times. The scant clues that remain, such as the last known letters that hinted at his plans for a journey into the borderlands, or the ambiguous reports from those who claimed to have seen a solitary figure wandering the arid landscapes of Chihuahua or Sonora long after his official disappearance, contribute to an aura of unresolved mystery that has, over the decades, inspired numerous literary works, investigative articles, and even fictionalized accounts that blur the lines between historical fact and imaginative conjecture, each retelling adding layers of complexity to the enigma and ensuring that Bierce's ultimate fate remains an open question in the collective memory of American cultural history. Moreover, the disappearance of Ambrose Bierce is emblematic of the broader themes of uncertainty and impermanence that run through his own writings, where the interplay of light and shadow, clarity and ambiguity, mirrors the paradox of a man who chronicled the brutal realities of war and the corruptions of power with unflinching honesty, only to have his own life end in an equally murky and unresolved manner, thereby creating a poignant symmetry between his literary output and the mystery of his vanishing. Many scholars have speculated that Bierce's disappearance was not a mere accident or the result of a random misfortune, but rather the culmination of a deliberate decision to remove himself from a world that had grown increasingly intolerant of dissent and authenticity, a world in which his iconoclastic views and his fearless commentary had made him as many enemies as admirers, and that his retreat into the wilderness might have been driven by a desire for solitude and a final escape from the relentless pressures of modernity. An escape that, once embarked upon, left him isolated in a realm where the normal rules of society and the certainties of recorded history no longer applied. Others, however, have pointed to the volatile political climate in Mexico at the time, marked by the chaos of the Mexican Revolution and the breakdown of governmental authority in many regions, suggesting that Bierce, whose critical acumen had long made him a target for censorship and reprisal, might have been inadvertently caught in a violent struggle between rival factions, his identity subsumed or deliberately erased in the conflagration of revolutionary fervor. And while no definitive evidence has ever emerged to support this scenario, the mere possibility underscores the precarious nature of life on the margins during periods of intense social and political upheaval. In addition, some researchers have drawn parallels between Bierce's literary preoccupations, his fascination with the surreal, the inexplicable, and the grotesque, and the eerie circumstances of his disappearance, arguing that his final act was, in many ways, a fitting extension of his artistic vision, a final, cryptic performance that left the world to grapple with the ambiguity of his fate much as they grapple with the ambiguous moral and existential questions posed in his writings. And this notion is bolstered by the fact that throughout his career, Bierce had maintained a skeptical stance toward the grand narratives of progress and civilization, opting instead to expose the underlying ironies and contradictions that defined human existence, so that his ultimate vanishing might be interpreted as the ultimate irony. A life spent chronicling the transient nature of truth and the inexorable decline of idealism, culminating in an exit that was as enigmatic and unresolved as the subjects he had so ardently critiqued. The ensuing decades saw the proliferation of various accounts and theories regarding his disappearance, some of which relied on circumstantial evidence such as the unexplained absence of his personal effects, the sporadic sightings of a solitary, bearded man in remote border regions, and the disappearance of correspondence that once hinted at his travel plans, all of which have been meticulously examined by historians and amateur sleuths alike, each piece of evidence interpreted through the prism of their own perspectives and the prevailing socio-political context of the times in which they were investigated. And while these investigations have occasionally yielded tantalizing hints, such as references in local folklore to a mysterious wanderer who might have been Bierce, or archival documents that suggest his name was mentioned in passing among reports of border skirmishes, the overall picture remains frustratingly incomplete, a mosaic of fragments that resists the formation of a coherent narrative capable of explaining his final moments. Furthermore, the disappearance of Ambrose Bierce invites a broader reflection on the nature of historical memory and the processes by which individuals become mythologized over time. For in Bierce's case, the lack of a definitive account of his fate has allowed his persona to take on a larger-than-life quality, transforming him from a controversial journalist and writer into a symbol of the eternal outsider, the iconoclast who, even in death, defies the confines of conventional history and continues to inhabit the liminal spaces between reality and legend, a transformation that has been eagerly embraced by subsequent generations of writers, artists, and scholars who see in his unresolved fate a metaphor for the ultimate mystery of existence itself. A mystery that, like the best of his own literary works, invites us to question the boundaries of truth and to acknowledge that some stories, no matter how meticulously chronicled in life, may be destined to remain shrouded in perpetual uncertainty. In this light, the disappearance of Ambrose Bierce becomes not merely an isolated historical event but a profound commentary on the nature of identity, the impermanence of legacy, and the inexorable passage of time, reminding us that the very act of remembering is intertwined with the possibility of forgetting, and that the absence of a clear conclusion in Bierce's case reflects the complex, often paradoxical relationship between an individual's life, their creative output, and the inexorable forces of history that ultimately obscure even the most brilliant of human achievements. Indeed, every new generation that encounters Bierce's work is confronted not only with the biting satire and stark realism of his prose, but also with the lingering question of what became of the man behind the words, a question that has spawned a wealth of literature, academic studies, and speculative narratives, each attempting in its own way to unravel the final mystery of his existence. And while these efforts have enriched our understanding of the cultural and historical context in which he lived, they have done little to illuminate the precise circumstances of his disappearance, leaving us to ponder whether the truth of Ambrose Bierce's fate is destined to remain as elusive as the spectral figures that populate his writings. As we trace the contours of his life, from his early days as a soldier and correspondent during the Civil War, through his meteoric rise as a celebrated yet contentious literary figure, to his eventual decision to venture into the uncertain borderlands of Mexico, where the lines between reality and myth blur against the backdrop of a landscape fraught with danger and unpredictability, we are compelled to confront the possibility that Bierce's disappearance was not an aberration or an accident, but rather a deliberate, if tragic, act of self-erasure, a final statement, of defiance in which he chose to vanish from the pages of history on his own enigmatic terms, leaving behind a legacy that is defined not by the certainty of recorded events but by the vast, open space of mystery into which his life has receded. In the end, the disappearance of Ambrose Bierce stands as a testament to the enduring power of narrative and the unyielding allure of the unknown, a reminder that even in an age dominated by the relentless march of modernity and the systematic accumulation of data, there remain aspects of the human experience that defy quantification and resist resolution. Aspects that, like Bierce himself, continue to haunt our collective imagination with the tantalizing promise of secrets yet unrevealed, of truths that lie buried beneath layers of contradiction, skepticism, and the inevitable erosion of memory. Thus, as we continue to sift through the historical debris of early 20th century correspondence, examine the faded photographs and fragile documents that hint at a final journey into the wilderness, and listen to the whispers of oral tradition from border communities who claim to have seen a solitary figure wandering the desert, we are inexorably drawn back to the central enigma of Bierce's vanishing. A riddle that, much like his own prose, is laced with irony, uncertainty, and a profound questioning of the very nature of existence, leaving us to wonder if, perhaps, his disappearance was itself a work of art, an ultimate narrative constructed to defy the finality of death and to ensure that his name, his words, and the mystery of his fate would live on in perpetuity, challenging each successive generation to confront the limits of what can be known and to embrace the possibility that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but rather to serve as eternal invitations to question, to imagine, and to acknowledge that in the vast, unfathomable expanse of human history, the truth is often less important than the relentless pursuit of understanding itself, a pursuit that, in the case of Ambrose Bierce, continues unabated even as the sands of time obscure the final chapters of his life, leaving behind a legacy of unresolved questions, haunting literary echoes, and the enduring, ineffable allure of a man who chose, in the end, to disappear into the unknown.